So, Mr. Mayor, this is to keep us awake at all times?
That is to keep you awake at all times and keep you focused and on task.
Well, that's good, but appreciate it, and don't feel too bad because we had a previous mayor that texted all the time instead of sleeping, so.
I want it noted that I don't even have my phone on me. I don't bring it into council meetings. Wouldn't do me any good. Okay, sorry, just getting ourselves organized. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of council for Monday, September 12th, 7 p.m. in City Hall Council Chambers. I'd like to recognize that we're on the traditional territories of the Hupetchesed and Sechot First Nations. Councillors, are there any late items? And City Clerk, any late items?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of late items under D3 delegations from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation, and also under correspondence H1.1 from Christine Jarvis and H1.2 from Janet Little.
Okay, so you went through those really quickly, and you'll have to remind me in case I overlook something. Okay, motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
The seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. We have a special meeting held at 6:15 p.m. and a regular council meeting held at 7 p.m. on August 8th, 2016. A motion to adopt those minutes would be in order.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. This brings us to Part C, public input period. It's an opportunity for the public to address council, is there anybody wish to address council? Yes, please come forward. And for council, please state your name and give us your address. Please come to the lectern.
My name is Bonnie Morgan, 5930 Margot Road, Port Alberni.
Okay, welcome, Bonnie.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, my subject tonight is the Greenwood Cemetery, and I believe it's been a long time since Greenwood Cemetery has had substantial improvements, and the back end where the plots are being sold is overrun with large weeds, but weeds throughout the cemetery. There's dead grass for a good portion of the year at the cemetery, and 2 years later, after burials, the grass hasn't grown in. There's, still dirt. And the pathway to the cemetery needs work as it is heaving. It can pose a problem for people with disabilities. And without a doubt, the cemetery needs irrigation and weed control. And compared to other island cemeteries, Greenwood Cemetery looks neglected. It's all relevant, the size of the town, the size of the cemetery, and the amount of taxes generated. And, okay, the plots aren't cheap, and I believe it is very disrespectful to the people who are buried there who helped to build Port Alberni, as well as children and veterans of war. Because it is in a high traffic area and not visible to the public every day, it doesn't make it any less important to our city. This is a forever place and will be there for eternity. Driving through our city, I see nice green irrigated grass along the south end of 3rd Avenue, Upper Argyle, Clipsa Field, our ball fields, and along Johnson Road, to name a few. The time has come, which is always voted down, to get irrigation at Greenwood Cemetery and not be put off any longer. Being a public place, this is concerning the gates that are closed. It is the only cemetery I know of where the gates are closed to the visiting public. These should be open during daylight hours. If a funeral is happening, post it. A large portion of the visitors are older people. Many I have seen pushing walkers and in wheelchairs in 30-degree heat and rain and cold, plus cougar sightings nearby. Being the walkway is in need of repairs, this too is a hazard. If irrigation could take place and weed removal, the city would benefit by the sale of the plots. The time is now and a long time overdue. I ask that each of you take a walk through from one end to the other. You are the people who represent Port Alberni. And will this be your final resting place? Thank you.
Bonnie, thank you for your time. And after we met, I did actually go and take yet another look at Greenwood Cemetery. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
Is there anybody else wish to address council under public input period? In that case, this is an opportunity for me to just do a little bit of education about what happens with money that the city collects for taxes, and it's part of a regular feature, and that is the annual tax sale. What is this annual tax sale and why is it held? The city holds an auction each September called the tax sale. The Local Government Act requires the city to sell at tax sale all properties whose taxes are in delinquent balance, which reflects 3 years of unpaid taxes. At the tax sale, these properties are offered for sale by auction. The current owners or registered charge holders of these properties have 1 year after the tax sale to redeem the property from the tax sale process. Redeeming is how the original owner makes a payment to rescue their property from the tax sale process. Once a property is redeemed, the city will refund all of the money paid by the bidder, plus interest to the date of redemption, back to the bidder. If the property is not redeemed, the process of transferring the property's ownership to the new owner starts. This year's tax sale is being held on Monday, September 26th at 10 a.m. at City Hall. In accordance with the Local Government Act, the legal description and street address for all properties will be made available on Thursday, September 15th, and subsequently advertised in the local newspaper. If you need more information, please contact City Hall at 250-723-2146. Thank you. And Council, that brings us to Part D, delegations, and our first delegation is Sheena Faulkner, West Coast Aquatic. Sheena, welcome.
They just don't want to right now.
It's okay, we don't bite.
We'll have to lift this up after. Hi, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to come in front of you to speak today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sheena Faulkner, and I'm the Executive Director of West Coast Aquatic Stewardship Association. Before starting, I'd like to thank the city for their ongoing assistance and participation in our fisheries projects. We couldn't do what we do without the support of the city. With me are Graham Hill from Northwest Hydraulics and Dave Clough from DR Clough Consulting. Graham's an engineer and David Clough is a biologist. They both have been involved in numerous projects around the city. We commissioned these two experts with funds that we got from the Habitat Stewardship Program to create a high-level list of priority projects primarily related to salmon habitat restoration. This report is entitled the Somas River Integrated Fish Habitat Restoration Overview, and you have copies of that, and it was sent out about a month ago. Dave and Graham are here today to speak to this report. We're going to be using this report as the basis to ask the Fisheries Minister for $15 million to address these identified projects. We have an appointment with the Fisheries Minister, and they're just scheduling the time sometime in October or November. So these projects are important both for fisheries and for watershed integrity, as well as providing employment for local people. Before they start, I'd like to point out there are currently 2 watershed discussions taking place in our region. The drinking watershed is China Creek. A working group has been formed to discuss best practices in relation to this watershed and consists of forestry companies and local environmental groups. So this report we're discussing today deals with the Somas Basin watershed area and doesn't lie within the scope of the China Creek watershed. The scope includes Taylor, Sproat, Great Central, Ash, Stamp, and Somas. Sproat is a future source of water for the city, potentially. This is a critical area for people and fisheries and requires careful management to ensure optimal system health. We've had discussions with the City, Regional District, Tashot, and Hupichicit about forming a high-level watershed committee to discuss the future of the system, and all have agreed in principle to participate. We're holding a meeting to discuss the results of this report with these groups in November. So we've been to each of those groups and talked to them about the importance of having some management over the system, and everybody seems to be in agreement. It's a good idea. One of the questions to ask ourselves is, do we incorporate the China Creek watershed into the discussion and have one watershed committee, or does it need to be separate? So as you're listening to Graham present the report, I'd like you to keep in mind of the importance of salmon runs to our region. Millions of dollars every year generated to our community through fisheries. So as they finish, what our asks are going to be today is to appoint a representative to the Somas Basin watershed and discuss how it should work, whether it should incorporate China Creek or not. Also, a supporting letter to the fisheries minister for the ask of $15 million, and a motion to improve ongoing active participation in our priority projects. So I will give it to Graham, and he'll present our report. And you'll need to go like a lot higher.
Yeah, thanks, Gina. Is this a pointer?
Yeah.
All right. So hello everyone, my name's Graham Hill. I work for Northwest Hydraulic Consultants. This is the Somas River Integrated Fish Habitat Restoration Overview. Does this have an automatic advance?
You click in the middle, and then it's just forward and back.
Like, can I, oh, there we go, okay. So the purpose of this study was to provide a high-level review of the lower portions of the watershed and to lay out a roadmap for an integrated fish habitat restoration plan. To develop a balanced plan that focuses on fish and fish habitat, as well as long-term flood management and community development planning. And there's been quite a few partners included to this point. City of Port Alberni, Alberni Regional District, higher levels of government, NGOs, as well as First Nations and special interest groups. So for this study, our work plan included these items. We met with West Coast Aquatics and other partners. We discussed past work and brainstormed fish habitat restoration concepts. We conducted a background data review and analysis that included geology, geomorphology, climate and hydrology, land use, and river and tsunami hydraulics. Carried out a field reconnaissance trip, gathered additional information, which helped put this list of restoration concepts for the project area together. And we refined the concepts and developed detailed project descriptions and planning level cost estimates. This is the study area. It's the entire Somas Basin. Includes Great Central Lake, Sproat Lake, Stamp River, Somas River, and Sproat. So the first part of this talk is going to be about flood management, and the second part is going to be about the fish habitat restoration. That's the integrated component of this plan. So flood management includes river floods, which are generated by extreme winter precipitation, combined with snowmelt in response to Pacific low pressure systems. Coastal flooding in winter months is generated by extreme high tides combined with storm surges. These events are often coinciding with river floods. And tsunamis are the third type of major event, and they're triggered by subduction zone earthquakes in the North Pacific offshore from Vancouver Island. The most recent major event occurred in 1964. This shows the 1997 BC provincial flood map. This shows the extents of flooding as mapped by the provincial program about 20 years ago. One of the differences between the 1997 study and current studies is there is now the need to incorporate climate adaptation. For the Port Alberni area, the sea level change equates to somewhere around 0.6 meters based on the current models. This is a flood map overview, and it shows current high tide, and then it shows high tide with a 0.75 meter overlay, and you can see by the colored areas the extended inundation areas. The crest of the 1964 tsunami event was estimated to be 4.1 meters above the normal tide level. The actual water level at the head of the inlet reached about 5.4 meters. The 1964 tsunami level exceeded the 200-year level on the Somas River by up to 2.5 meters for a distance of about 4 kilometers up the inlet. And there's a tsunami level at 10 meters Canadian geodetic datum overlaid on the map, and we can see quite an inundation zone. So I'm going to move on to the fish habitat restoration part. For this part of the study, a suite of projects were identified, and they'll be presented here. The main methods used to identify these projects included a review of available information, especially maps and air photos, discussions with stakeholder partners, and the aforementioned field visit. Land ownership was not taken into account, and the restoration projects in this study are not intended to imply consent from any landowners. This slide shows the Somas estuary. At the bottom is a map from about 150 years ago. One of the things we do when we restore watersheds is we look at what conditions used to be, and we try to figure out if we can reduce some of the man-made impacts and get back to some of these conditions when the environmental ecosystems were healthier. This is one of 3 maps that was presented in the report. This is the lower map in the estuary area, and we can see on here there's been 11 example projects or 11 areas that have been identified for restoration. These projects range in quite the scope. Some of them are estuarine benches, some of them are shoreline softening, channel excavations, there's dike removals, there's some breaching of existing fills or removal of existing fills. Here's an example. This is from the report. This is the Left Bank Erosion Protection and Fish Habitat Project. The title is SOE 10, which stands for Somas Estuary 10. So the issue is the left bank of the estuary is heavily impacted by extensive development and bank hardening that has occurred incrementally over a period of about a century. So the concept that we present in the report is to establish a narrow aquatic bench and other fish-friendly habitat features such as LWD or rock spurs along the lower slope of the embankment.
So you 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left? Okay. I'm going to show a couple of photos to show examples of fish habitat restoration projects we're talking about. This is a culvert that has already been constructed in the lower estuary. This helps flushing flows to get into areas that were previously cut off. These are some large woody debris placements. This improves fish habitat quality. This is on the Cowichan River. This is a project in the Comox estuary. This is a salt marsh restoration project. This is during construction, and this is the completed project. These islands were constructed. These are man-made. In the report, there's a summary table of restoration projects where a ranking based on costs, the perceived or estimated fisheries benefit, and project complexity are provided, and then a total ranking score. And then from the report, the conclusions and recommendations are as follows. It's recommended to form a watershed management committee to develop numerical flow modeling tools for assessment and planning, to update floodplain maps, including sea level rise predictions, reactivate the Somas River and Stamp River flow gauges. Over time, additional restoration projects will probably be identified as conditions change and additional knowledge is brought forward. As noted previously, land ownership was not taken into account. This needs to be for the next phases of the projects. Project costs are expected to vary from the estimates presented, and the scale used for rankings is expected to be adjusted as additional stakeholder groups provide input. Thank you.
Graham, thank you very much. What's the timing on this, the project? You're talking $15 million.
So probably it'll probably take around a decade, we think, to get everything done. It's not going to happen immediately.
And when are you expecting to hear about the results of the grant application?
It isn't a grant. We're actually asking the minister directly for $15 million to be put into the SOMAS Basin, and that's because there's been numerous funding inflows into other regions, and this area hasn't kept pace. And as you can see, like if you look at the project list, a lot of these are historic problems that have occurred over time and have never been addressed. So we need a big cash infusion to kind of catch us up to other areas. So that's what we're asking for.
Are you expecting to hear a response at some point in 2016, or is this a much longer time
I
horizon?
think that the response would probably happen in 2017. The preliminary visit will take place in October, November of 2016. So in 2017, we should expect to hear a response one way or another. I'm not sure we'll get the whole 15 million, but we're gonna ask.
Good. Yeah, well, we won't know. Okay, Councillor Sauvé and then Councillor McClellan.
Thank you. I noticed in your report when I was reading it last night was the fact that you're getting involved with multiple level of governments, but I didn't see any involvement with the DFO department. Has that been because I've seen similar projects and statistics from them on this matter? Are they involved within your research?
Yes, so DFO is like a partner in everything we do. We don't move on anything without DFO as a partner. So
But for the endorsement letter, you
Yeah.
will get DFO's endorsement because that
Yes.
will help you big time.
yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, skill testing question. What happens if we don't get the money?
It'll take longer. We'll get the money somewhere or other, but we want it just in a big whack so we can actually get the stuff done because it's long-standing issues that need to be addressed. So
Okay, anything else, Council? Sheena, you said there were two things two asks. One was a representative to the committee and the second one was a letter of support for the minister.
yeah, so 3 asks in total, but so the first one is representative on the committee.
Yeah.
Second is the supporting letter to the fisheries minister, and the third is just to approve that the city stays involved actively in our ongoing projects.
Okay. When do you need that by?
Oh, this sooner would be nice. It would be nice to send the support letters to the minister by the next council meeting at least.
Okay, so then Councillor Sauvé?
I'm sorry, just one question. When you say a city getting involved, what kind of involvement are you looking at?
So on the committee, being aware of the different things that are happening so that there's decision-making ability on that committee. So when we talk to Shada and Hupitchis in the regional district, it needs to be similar to the Cowichan Watershed Committee. So in that committee, there's a leadership group, and then there's a sort of advisory body that provides information to that leadership group so that decisions can be made relatively quickly.
So that city position you're requesting, would that be only as an advisor, or you're actually looking for a voting member on the board?
Voting member on the board.
Okay, Councillor Paulson, did you have a question? Okay, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as the next meeting is quite a ways away, I'd like to make a motion that we provide the letters in support at this meeting.
Yeah.
I have a seconder.
Second.
And I think, and as far as the involvement with the committee, we've been on several of those committees, and at the next meeting, we can decide. That's not quite so urgent.
But the letter of support is important now.
Yeah.
Any comment, Council? Okay, and providing the letter of support then, all those in favor? Carried. There we go. So the most important thing is out of the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you very much. And Graham, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Council, our next delegation is Patty Edwards, and she's to present a resolution requesting council support at UBCM, urging that the government of BC adopt a comprehensive and accountable provincial poverty reduction strategy. Patty, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address council.
Just to remind you, sorry, I forgot to do it with the previous delegation, but we have up to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm coming as a member of the Alberni Valley Social Planning Council to bring this to your attention for the upcoming UBCM convention. This motion has been formulated by the BC Coalition for Poverty Reduction Plan. I know that council has already endorsed the Poverty Reduction Coalition, and so has the Social Planning Council. I know when you get to UBCM, the policy book is like an inch thick and things get buried. And this is a very important issue, I think, for our community. And I think you have a copy of the resolution in your package. So
Yes.
I'll just read the therefore be it resolved. Therefore be it resolved that this council advocate to the provincial government to develop and implement a provincial government reduction strategy to reduce the number of people living in poverty in BC by setting concrete targets and timelines to reduce poverty. Be it further resolved that this council support the resolution that will be brought to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities in September 2016, urging the government of BC to adopt a comprehensive and accountable provincial poverty reduction strategy to reduce the number of people living in poverty in BC by setting concrete targets and timelines to reduce poverty. So our community has got all the facts. We've heard the reports from Dr. Hasselback, health reports, and we have the vital signs report about poverty. The vital signs report says that overall poverty rate after tax in 2013, the overall poverty rate in the Alberni Valley was 18.5%, up slightly from 17.8% in 2012. The 2013 figure was 13% higher than the provincial average and 26.6% higher than the national average. And so it goes down the line, lower life expectancy. Instead of 1 in 5 children in poverty, we have 1 in 3. So we have dismal stats, and we need a provincial plan to help us to coordinate and reduce poverty. So I think this is, I'm calling on this council to step up when that motion comes on the table and maybe speak to some of the issues. I think sometimes poverty is something that we really feel we don't want to bring out. We're talking about all the good stuff, but we do live in a valley of abundance, and there's no need for this, and we need some provincial help to it's a national and a provincial and a community problem that we all need to have a plan to work with. So thank you for your support for this motion.
Thank you, Patty. Just out of curiosity, did you hear that article on CBC on Saturday about the results of the guaranteed income in Gimli, Manitoba from about 10 or 12 years ago?
No.
The whole community was given a guaranteed minimum income, and they had some really interesting outcomes, significantly improved health outcomes, educational outcomes, positive economic outcomes for the community, and in the end, not significantly more money overall to the province, because many other costs went down dramatically, and particularly the cost of policing.
Right.
So very, very interesting look, and much of that data was almost lost because for one reason or another, the initiative ended, and so the information was stored for quite a while, and it was just about to head to the dump when a university researcher interceded and got a hold of it and started reviewing it and looking at significant recommendations that could be made as a result of that.
Wow, yeah. I know, and the fact that BC is the only province not to have a reduction plan is kind of startling. Like I think we should be a leader. We are rich in resources, and part of those resources are human resources. So we can't just leave people behind and say, oh, well, too bad. So that's interesting, yes.
Councillor Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just rifling through the UBCM resolutions to see where it was in the list. It looks like it's in the section that will be considered as a block, which usually means it goes through fairly easily.
There are 400 municipalities already signed on, so it looks like a given, but I think we need to speak out and get it cleaned up, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Council? Okay, Patty, thank you so much. Councillor, our next delegation is from the Community Forest, and I believe Chris Duncan is here. Oh, both gentlemen. Two Chris's.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Gary Swan is also on the board. He's here also. We have the resolution from the board, and what I'm going to do is first let Chris give a bit of a rundown on what we've been doing and what we're going to be doing, and then we have a check for the city as a dividend payment.
Okay, I'm Chris Law, the manager of the Alberni Valley Community Forest, and I'm working on my third year as manager. So the check that we're presenting to council is for our 2015 fiscal year. The previous check that we gave to City Council was from our first 5-year cut control period, and we're into our second 5-year cut control period, and so this check is from year 2 of that process. So year 1 and 2 of that second 5-year cut control process was mostly done on planning, and we had a little bit of harvesting at the end of 2015, which generated some revenue for the community forest. So that is where this check comes from. But moving forward, 2016, just give a quick update. 2016, we've actually incurred a fair amount more revenue coming in. So the check we should be presenting next year should be significantly more than the check we're presenting this time. In 2015, we awarded a contract to BLP Ventures, which is a local company from Port Alberni, and they started harvesting their 21,000 cubic meters, and that's where this revenue came from. And then in 2016, we awarded a contract for 8,800 cubic meters to Bradbury Enterprises, another local contractor. So both those two contracts are just wrapping up, and we've received most of the revenue from those two contractors. And then just recently, we awarded a contract to Probe and Log Limited, another local contractor, for 27,000 cubic meters. But that contract is for 2.5 years, so that revenue will be coming in over the next 2.5 years. So that's the revenue side of the community forest, but we have our ongoing expenses of road maintenance, silviculture, reforestation, and all that stuff. So those costs are always there, but this year and next year and the year after should be the revenue producing years. And then just one little side note on the community forest. We had actually a lightning strike forest fire in the community forest on a Sunday in August, late August. And the public did a great job of reporting it. There was a helicopter out there within an hour dropping water on the fire. And then the next day, the Thunderbirds had a unit crew out there, full unit crew, 22 people up there putting it out. They were up there the next day, and then they monitored it for the rest of the week. So they're just a great asset to have in the valley. It really saved us from having another Dog Mountain sort of incident. The response from the public and the rapid response from the forest firefighters. So that was good. So that's pretty much my report. So this is a check we're giving you this year, but next year it looks better.
Okay, so what we have is a check for $100,000. Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to...
$100,000 doesn't sound too bad either.
Good news.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So
I won't hold this very long. I'll actually give it to the CEO.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say thanks to the board for coming, and they didn't say everything they're doing. There's a lot of other things going on in the community forest, including trails and recreation and things like that. And don't promise too much money next time in case something happens, guys. But I'd like to make a motion that we thank them and accept the funds and put it in the Community Forest Legacy Fund.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? When you say the Community Forest Legacy Fund, what are you referring to, Councillor McClellan?
Where we put the community forest funds and then decide what to do with it. That's all.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, your commitment to our community forest, and your commitment to making this place a better place to be. And this is something that it's been one heck of an investment for the city of Port Alberni to get this kind of return on its investment. It doesn't always happen that way, but thank you very much. All right, Council, under unfinished business, we have from a response from the CAO, questions from Mr. Roland Smith. So I will turn this over at this point to the CAO Ply and have him review his report.
Mr. Mayor, the report before you is I'll back up. On July 8th, I wrote a report to council summarizing costs associated with the Rogers report. Council will recall that discussion. We received a letter from Mr. Smith asking for clarification on a couple of points in that report. And so the report before you now clarifies those points and addresses Mr. Smith's concerns. If you'd like further explanation, Mr. Mayor, or if you want to ask questions, I can respond to those.
Well, but when you're going over this, you're doing it not just for council's information, but for the information of everybody who's here in the audience and people who are watching at home. And so this might be a good opportunity for you to just review your discussion items.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, in my July 8 report, I summarized the Rogers review costs in a net fashion. So costs or savings were reflected as a plus or a minus. And Mr. Smith has asked basically three questions. One was he wanted to know what the city's total 2015 cost for exempt employees was, and the response was $2,467,288. Question two, what are the estimated annual costs for exempt employees after implementation of recommendations for the Rogers report? That's a difficult figure to put your hand on, your finger on, as I mentioned in my report, because there's a lot of variables, a lot of ins and outs, and retirements and hiring and that sort of thing. But we estimated our annual costs in 2016 after the Rogers report implementations to be $2,472,436. And the third question had to do with the my July 8 report reflected a cost to the city, a net cost increase of $7,144 in pension premiums, and that had to do with a 4% salary increase for exempt employees. That 4% salary increase was offset by a reduction in a benefit known as MEG of an equal amount. So we didn't show that salary cost as an increase, but there was that salary is pensionable, so there was an associated pension premium cost associated to that 4% increase, and the cost was $7,144. And I hope I haven't muddied the waters further. So that's my response to those three questions.
Okay, have you spoken to Mr. Smith about this?
I have. I spoke with Mr. Smith prior to writing the report to clarify his questions to those three that I just read to you. And I've exchanged emails with Mr. Smith after he read the report in the council package.
Okay. Councillor Alamani,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a niggly point for the public that's not aware of acronyms. MEG. Could you spell it out? I don't think it's spelled out in your report, just for the public's sake.
Mr. Mayor, no, I haven't spelled it out, and I'm not going to attempt to here because I would get it partially correct. MEG is an acronym, MEG, was a provision. It was a 6% benefit to exempt employees. Those are non-union employees, in lieu of overtime primarily, but also in lieu of a number of other benefits that our unionized employees get. And so we, effective July 1st this year, we eliminated the MEG provision. I'm sorry, I can't tell you the exact name, but we eliminated that 6% provision and put in place a 4% salary increase and a provision that exempt employees could earn up to 2 weeks of straight time off for overtime logged.
I bet you there's somebody sitting in the audience who could tell you exactly what MEG stands for.
There are several. Would you like me to call one up?
Sure, just because the question's asked, so we might as well get the answer.
I'm not seeing any volunteers. Perhaps the Director of Finance could help us. Thanks, Kathy.
There's a reason I do payroll sometimes. Management exempt group.
Thank you very much. I just didn't want to leave them swinging in the wind there, so. Councillor Sauvé, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just reading through this, for the major projects advisor, the former city manager was transferred newly created position. It says unspecified amount. Is there a reasoning for that?
Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Sauvé's question is in my July 8 report. Is that correct?
It would be, that's right, page 3.
Okay, I'm just scrolling down to that.
The 2016.
Yeah. Can you bring that up? It's in the attached report.
Just after when we talk about reduced benefits.
So, Councillor Sauvé, could you restate the question, please?
Yeah, pretty much it states here, as for the major projects advisor, in 2016, we're looking at what was the cost of the city manager, the ex-city manager staying on, and it says unspecified amount.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why it's unspecified, or is it just not public knowledge?
There is. Just give me a second,
Thank you.
please. So what it says is that that there was, when Mr. Watson was transferred from the position of city manager to major projects advisor, he undertook some work for us managing some significant projects. Most significant was the sewage lagoon project. And we tried to put our finger on what dollar amount we could attach to that as a savings. We're confident that Mr. Watson's work not only contributed in value to the better project, but also contributed in the sense that it offset some consultant fees that we would have paid somebody else to do that work. But in speaking with several different informed people, nobody was able to even predict to me or estimate what a dollar amount would be. So I've shown it as an unspecified amount. So we're confident that there was a savings there, but we're not able to specify how much.
One of the savings was in the reduction in contributions to the ACRD, and they took $20,000 off of our reduction, off of our contribution because of the savings in consultants' fees for there, because he was partnering with them on some of their projects. So that is one amount that can be indicated as a savings to the city of Port Alberni. Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make the motion that the report dated August the 4th, 2016, Chief Administration Officer responding to a letter dated July 20th from Mr. Roland Smith be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that regarding the last question that was asked, that I really appreciated the fact that Mr. Watson was doing the work he was. I think it's probably the most I've done in any given 12-month period since that started, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
And to note as well that he's the one who's stick handling the the Millstone Park project for us and continues to do that. Okay, on the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item, sale of lots A and B. Sorry, just as a confirmation, council, of the sale of the lots A and B, former known as the plywood site. So I'm now happy to confirm that the sale of lots A and B of the former plywood mill site to 1075565 BC Limited was finalized on August the 30th of this year. The property was sold for $250,000 to a numbered company headed up by Canadian Maritime Engineering, also the parent company to Canadian Alberni Engineering. The sale will support the revitalization of the properties through a new industrial manufacturing and repair services development, and a development covenant between the city and the purchaser will require the owner to commence industrial use activities on the land within 36 months, including construction of site improvements, with a construction value of not less than $500,000. Should construction on the lands not occur in accordance with the covenant, the city has an option to purchase the lands back at the original purchase price. It is also important to note that the new owner has assumed responsibility for the contamination on the lands and will save the city any harm from any liability, including remediation costs for contamination. The sale does not include Lot C, known as Canal Beach, and does not alter the current use of the property as a public beach. The city has worked hard to balance the needs of industrial and recreational interests and has demonstrated that the two can coexist in close proximity. Further, council, it's important to note that the city has always been open to offers to purchase this property, even though it might not always have actively been pursuing such a sale. So now we're happy to confirm that it has indeed happened, and it happened relatively painlessly for us as a city, and we're looking forward to great things to come as a result of this sale. Okay, staff reports.
Just have a question, Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Councillor Alamani?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the 36 months. That's from August 30th then, when it was signed? That'd be about right, or when it's finalized?
That would be correct, Mr. Mayor. It was from the date that would have been registered at land titles. And essentially, the August 30th date was the timeline.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, council? All right, then that brings us to accounts. Councillor Washington, are you able to make this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the certification of Director of Finance dated September 12th, 2016 be received, and checks numbering 135978 to 136325 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $979,423.32 be approved.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Washington, under the Audit Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the August 8th, 2016 Audit Committee meeting, the responses to the questions arising from the meeting dated August 23rd, 2016, the quarterly analysis of Mayor and Council travel and convention expenses ending June 30th, 2016, the financial statement ending June 30th, 2016, and the vendor check registry report ending August 2, 2016 be received.
Seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And from the Director of Community Services, under McLean Mill Governance, we've got CAO, you're presenting information to council?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, on September 9th, members of council, members of staff, members of the Board of Management, and including one member rep from Industrial Heritage Society, met in a workshop setting with a lawyer, Michael Litchfield, and discussed, the meeting was for the purpose of determining the best best model, structural model for the entity that would, that we see managing McLean Mill on behalf of the city going forward. So council will recall that the Industrial Heritage Society contract comes to an end December 31st, and it's our intention that January 1st we would enter into a management agreement with a new entity that is partially populated. The Board of Management has several voting members and several non-voting members on it already. So Mr. Litchfield was able to facilitate us, inform us of first he learned what it was that we wanted to do, what our intentions were, and he was able to point out some options that he thought would best suit the city's needs. And although no decisions were made there, Mr. Litchfield made recommendations that council might now consider. On the agenda behind you, I think if Davina will scroll down, you'll see two motions that are recommended by Mr. Litchfield. So the first would be that council would proceed with the formation of a society to undertake management of the McLean Mill National Historic Site. And the second would be that council proceed with a public process inviting applications for directors to populate the remaining seats that council views would be on the new society. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
It's amazing how more than a year's worth of work can come down to these two sentences, because it does represent a tremendous amount of work and thinking and input from many, many, many people. So thank you for facilitating us to get to this point. Council, are there questions? Okay. Councillor McClellan, do you wish to make a motion?
Okay. I move that the Council of the City of Port Alberni proceed with formation of a society to undertake management of the McLean Mill National Historic Site.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is the recommended motion, and I accept that, but they will need to be looking after more than just that, but we'll wait until that develops.
Okay. Any questions, Council? Okay. All those in favor of the motion then? Any opposed? Carried. And Councillor McClellan?
I move that the Council of the City of Port Alberni proceed with a public process inviting applications for directors for the new society.
Okay. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any discussion? Just clarification, City Clerk, is there a time frame on this, or is it an open, as people are interested, you put an advertisement in the paper and people are interested will submit their names?
I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we do come up with a timeline, which we can do independent of the council meeting, and make it a reasonable timeline,
okay.
Inviting applications.
Okay, thank you. In that case, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. And CEO, thank you very much for that report. Then we're on to item 4, Council, this time from the Director of Community Services, the alternate delivery model for the Museum and Heritage Services, Arts, Cultural, and Heritage Plan. Am I correct in that? Welcome. I just had this, there was this quizzical look back there.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
Okay.
That's what the report says.
Proceed away.
Okay. So in the report, I outline council's direction for us to look at an alternate delivery model for museum and heritage services. And that came up during February 2016 meeting. And then April 11th, I brought back a report putting together a stakeholders group to look at options and to see where we were at in terms of the community and dealing with that. Again, that came out of the Rogers report, looking at finding a not-for-profit to take over delivery of the museum and heritage services. As my report says, the stakeholder group has met twice and had fairly extensive conversations that at times went round and round in circles because it's not clear totally in terms of within the community what is the direction for heritage and museum services. And so we're bringing home stakeholders that have their own individual ideas, but really what is the direction and the plan for the community. And that's been a request, especially in the area of arts, culture, and heritage for decades in terms of coming forward to doing that. At their last meeting, we looked at, and I know that the area we were originally looking at was heritage, but you can't separate heritage from arts and culture, especially when you start to look at the not-for-profit sector in this community. And so we did a mapping of all of the societies out there that potentially could take this on, and looked at that almost all of those societies are in semi-crisis. And not having the capacity to take on more. They're having trouble meeting their current mandates. And when we look around at most of the not-for-profits in this community, the aging demographics in terms of bringing in people, the issues with fundraising and the uncertainty around gaming, and so that's some of the criteria we looked at. What was their health in terms of financial within it? What was their health in terms of membership and volunteers? And what was their health around board governance in terms of doing that? And it looked pretty dim. And and not saying the sector is dim, but in terms of looking at what the capacity is out there. And so the stakeholder group, of which Councillor Washington is part of, is brought forward the recommendation of looking at, to be able to successfully do that, is we need to bring all of these organizations together and look at how we can support them in a model with a direction and a plan for this community. And a number of the members on that stakeholder group were familiar with the Arts and Culture Master Plan that the Village of Tofino just recently undertook. City of Vernon just undertook one as well as Nanaimo a couple of years ago. And it's fairly common for municipalities now to really look upon arts, culture, and heritage, not only in terms of a service you deliver, but a potential for economic development in terms of livability and vitality within communities. So I was directed in terms of discussion with the stakeholder group to come back and ask council if you could be persuaded to support the development of such a plan. And looking at, as part of that plan, would look at direction, would engage all of the stakeholders and their particular boards. At this point, our stakeholder group isn't having discussions with different boards because, quite frankly, we don't want to freak them out, okay, in terms of looking at taking on more and what's going to happen within their particular organization. There is money available within my budget to do that. Is that over the last couple of years, we have an operating reserve fund that came from community development projects that were to be undertaken, but there just weren't staff resources and time to do that. Primarily, it was looking at the uptown area and engaging stakeholders engaged in looking at ways to improve the uptown. I think a arts, culture, and heritage plan would engage the uptown core because we have the arts district here and the heritage facilities around this area as well. So that's kind of a background as to where the stakeholder group got to. What I would, if you were in favor of this, would bring back to our next council meeting specific costs and timeline. What we're looking at just generally is because we know there's some urgency to get this done. This is not an attempt to stall or backdoor what you've directed us to do. It really is for us to be able to do the best job we can to actually have a direction in which to go, and then to be able to follow through on that. What I would be looking at in terms of generally is we would be using internal staff with external support. Our staff are already up to the max in terms of priorities and getting things done, but it wouldn't be just hiring a consultant to do it. It would be directed internally by staff with those additional resources to get it done. We have the skills and knowledge to be able to do that. And I would look to want it to be having done before December 1st, so that's why it needs to be driven internally by staff, because they'll be bringing this back to in October and getting it done so that stakeholder group could then meet again, use the results of that, and carry forward. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Councillor McClellan, and then Councillor Sauvé and Councillor Minions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess I do support the concept of arts, cultural heritage, etc., doing something in concert. However, like we've just formed the committee for the, or the board, whatever, for the McLean Mill and ancillary areas, so that wouldn't have to be under whatever is formed for the museum, because that's there now. And my concept, and I don't know about the rest of the council, but the way I was seeing what was suggested was something very similar to that for the museum itself, with a volunteer board set up, not asking an existing group to take it over, because like you say, they're all stretched, they're all to the max and busy and having trouble in many cases getting new members, although some are going opposite on that now and actually are getting some newer and younger members, and that's good. But so I guess, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear what the rest of the council think. However, my personal feeling is that we need a very similar thing to what we've done with the McLean Mill for the museum itself. Not, you know, we'll still have the staff there and everything, but have the volunteers, a volunteer management board, not a nonprofit group.
Councillor Soe?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to commend you on the report. It was very easy to read and understandable. I also do recognize the Arts Council and the Heritage being involved in this committee that you're speaking of. I'm fully in support of it. The thing is, I believe everybody, the museum was never been in place to make money. The museum and the staff at hand, who's doing a wonderful job, have been placed there to promote such things as heritage. And with the last exhibit I attended, it was they're doing immense work, and I truly find it to be a core service for our community, because our heritage is our core for Port Alberni. I just want to let know the rest of the council that I do support this committee. I do have concerns about having volunteers managing. I would like to see staff continue having input in managing, because the experience is already there, and having volunteers on such board. But I think it's key that we need to still use the management staff on that director board, reporting directly back to you, to be an importance for me. So I'm still with the concept of the nonprofit society, because it's never been there to make money. It's pretty much there to help identify what Port Alberni and the Valley and who we are. So again, I commend you on the report. It's well done, and I'm fully support of your recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Minions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm definitely supportive of an arts, culture, and heritage plan. I think any effort we can make to make sure we're not duplicating services, especially with volunteer organizations that definitely are limited in their resources, is a good idea. I'm a bit hesitant because it definitely, you know, I mean, I know you're aware of this, is outside of the scope of what was originally directed. I'm nervous about taking away from that or taking on too big of a task and making, you know, and sort of losing sight of what we want to accomplish. But I can see that this will definitely, you know, if it is successful and a plan is put together, hopefully in the long run it will complement sort of the end goal that we want to get to. So thank you.
Councillor Paulson, then Councillor Alamani.
I'm just curious, during the process that we're leading up to looking at strictly the heritage side, did we take a look at what other communities are doing? In particular, the two that jump into mind, like-sized community would be Courtenay, and of course Qualicum. And I know that they have totally different models than what we have here. I don't know how successful or how unsuccessful they are, but I'm wondering if we've had a look at those particular models. And
We've
how they
actually
operate.
are gathering information from 16 different communities, 8 on the island and 8 throughout the province. And so it's been over the summer months. We have a staff person working on gathering all of that information. One of the things and the reason why it would be important to have an arts, heritage, and culture plan is what do you expect? You know, like you can easily look at what Qualicum and Courtenay is doing, and their museum is totally different than the museum, the number of artifacts they have, the number of collections, all of those kinds of things. So it's not just a matter of looking at what models, it's what's working in the community, what is the expectation. And so that's part of what a plan, a master plan on that would direct. And it may be the decisions are is that we need to do whatever we can around successing artifacts, maybe looking at the collections, those kinds of things. But just to look at one model and go, okay, it's run by a not-for-profit and let's mirror it here, when it's totally different conditions and totally different expectations that we have as a community, and trying to come to some rationalization about where are we going and the reason why we're going that way.
I'm pleased to hear that it's a broader spectrum than I just mentioned.
Yeah. Both of those are included in it. Right?
Good.
Councillor Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to echo what other councillors have already said. I think this is a good way to sort of broaden out the scope and take a good look at the full, the full scope of our arts and culture community and the heritage services that we deliver. All of the societies that are in town that have perennial problems around recruitment and funding and all of that. So I think the plan that you've come up with is a good one, and that the stakeholder group is recommending is a good one. If I may, I'll read the motion if that's appropriate.
That'd be great.
That Council for the City of Port Alberni received the report dated September 5th, 2016 from the Director of Community Services, and approve in principle the creation of an arts, culture, and heritage plan with specific details on timeline and costs to be reported at the next council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Councillor McLennan?
Yeah, Teresa, in your thoughts or in your concept, did you see this? I can't picture where the museum the committee that we asked for to be formed fits in here. I got no problem with art, cultural, and heritage doing stuff, and I don't think it's the city's job to get everybody together, but we can facilitate it. I don't believe it's the taxpayer's job to make sure that everybody is happy in those areas, but we definitely can facilitate them working together, and I'm totally in favor of that. But did you see in this the concept of a board running the museum and then being part of this, or did you see this as something different? I don't see, I can't get a picture of what is here.
So in order to change the governance model for the museum, we need to find a structure that works. And the direction that I received from council through the Judy Rogers report was looking at a not-for-profit model, which would mean a board, would mean a membership organization to take that on. We have looked, and there is not the capacity to do that. And setting aside any comments about the process with McLean Mill and the creating of the society, because I don't want this to be juxtaposed against each other. The problem with this community in this sector and many other sectors is we have too many not-for-profit societies. Whether it be healthcare sector, this sector or other, when you start to list them and you start to look at them, when you start to see how many have come out to the community investment program, when we have over 75 organizations that even just know about the CIP, and then you're trying to maintain that infrastructure and trying to give them more things to do in terms of bill and their capacity, we can't do it with the system as it exists right now. What I've said all along is, it's almost like the argument you've heard about healthcare, that in the healthcare system there's enough money to do it, it's just being spent in the wrong way and organized the wrong way. And I would suggest in this community there is enough money within that sector to do all that we want to do, and not the city taking it over, but the city creating an umbrella plan. And the city's not really creating the plan, the city's facilitating it with the stakeholders in the community and the community at large. And then looking about how do we come together and collaborate in that sector, and when you look at bringing all of those pieces of resources together, then it's large enough. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily, I can't prejudge what it's going to be. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be all lumped into one organization, one board, but we might come up with a model that hasn't been used elsewhere. It would be a collaborative, cooperative, where people are coming together and we're all working towards the same plan. And again, not the city delivering the arts and culture services, the city providing a facilitative role in terms of meeting our economic and social interests that you have in your strategic plan. One of your pillars in your plan is culture. So it's much better that the city be the visionary leader, facilitator that brings these groups together, and we can see a way then how, and I know Councillor Washington was at that meeting, there was a lot of energy and discussion about, instead of it's mine, get away from our organization, we're all in this together, and what do we bring to the table?
So I think you're right in that the way we view this is collectively this is ours. And how can we as a community get together in order to accomplish what the end goal that the council has established, which is independence. But what you're suggesting is actually an amazing bringing together of all of these interests and all of these capacities. And in the end, we may end up with something that is far better than we had envisioned and will become a model for other communities and other places. So, you know, this is beyond what I had envisioned, but it might be far more efficient than what we had possibly imagined. And if we can accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, which is the independence of the museum, together with everything else and making a stronger organization, great.
It's not a matter, and I totally agree with you, Mayor Mertan, it's not a matter of offloading the museum. It's a matter of coming up with a better model, and if we don't look into it and we're just trying to replicate what they've done in other communities, we're doomed for failure. Mm-hmm. And so we need to, you know, like I think that we've been said, and I've always said along, this is, while it's painful for some people in this community, it's an opportunity if it's done right. If you're telling me just go away and get people together and create it, you know, out of chaos and that kind of thing, we'll get something. But I can't guarantee you that it's going to last long. And are we just inflicting a slow death?
But you may actually be part of, so that means collectively as a city, we are part of strengthening all of these organizations because we'll be bringing them together. But I still say, and just repeat what I said, and you've already stated it, our goal is still to accomplish this by the date.
Definitely.
And great, so next time, or in December, you're going to bring to us that timeline and the costs and all that stuff. Great.
Yeah.
I personally support what you're doing, and as long as our goals are accomplished, we may end up with something way beyond what we had envisioned. So thank you for that. Councillor Paulson.
I'll support the motion as long as you promise to include the input of those 16 communities.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I have input from 4 of them right here with their arts, culture, and heritage plan.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Councillor Alberni.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. I do hope, I assume, and I do hope that McLean Mill and the society that's created will be part of that, and I assume it will be because it's obviously part of the heritage structure. But also, it gives me a lot of hope to see you, you know, being very effusive, and you're obviously very engaged in the process, and that's encouraging to see, and I think that's probably coming from the work group, and that tells me that it has a good chance to go in a good direction, and I do hope that not only will it create something for that sector, perhaps it will be something that other sectors in the community, other societies will be able to take on, because there is that huge amount of division and, well, not division, but just duplication of effort in all sorts of sectors, in the social sector, in the environmental sector, all over the place in the community. So hopefully it'll give them something to shoot for as well.
And one last thing I'd like to say is that you as a council will be part of that process. So definitely part of the planning will be sitting down with you in your entirety in terms of what is your view of arts, culture, and heritage in terms of seeing, again, from the broader economic, social, culture, and environmental perspective.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sauvé, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just wondered if it was visited involving the school district 70, because I know there's a lot of issues about volunteering and so forth and all that, but I wonder if there's been any proposal of, entering into their curriculum in the art classes, history classes and so forth, that some volunteers do sometime there. It'd be beneficial to both.
So that might be something that comes out in the plan. What I will say is the school district is a big contributor to arts and culture and heritage in this community and will be part of the planning process.
Thank you.
The chair of the school board is on the stakeholder group and her role with the Heritage Commission.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, council, next item from the city planner, Westport request for proposals.
Mayor, so council had asked for a request for proposals for a portion of city-owned property next to the Westport subdivision. In front of you is a preliminary draft of what that call for proposals could be, and it tried to bring together some of what we had heard and what council had given direction on that, but I'm looking for input for city council on this.
Okay, city planner, I'm just speaking just as an individual on council here, not representing council on the whole issue. But looking at this and looking at the state of residential lots that are either for sale currently or are in the immediate horizon, this may not be the time right now for the city to be putting more residential lots out for sale. So personally, I would think it's time we should put this on hold until we determine that there's a real need for that property. But that's my personal opinion. Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the same sentiment. The fact that, we got some vacant properties inside the community is just for us to redevelop in that area with the concerns with the residents that they rose about the in-ground water, trails, you name it. It's just, I don't think we're at the right time right now to even consider it. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Councillor Minions and then Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I personally read over the report and thought that it sort of had addressed everything that we asked for to be in the proposal. I'm not really clear where the comments are coming from that we all of a sudden don't have a need for residential lots. So I'd like to hear more about that, because that was a concern that was brought to us from staff at the beginning of the process, and we went ahead anyways. So I guess I want to, have we been told this by staff? Have we been told it by someone else? If we really need to not add more residential lots to the market right now, then I'd definitely like to hear that before we do it. But I'm not understanding completely why all of a sudden we're thinking of holding back. So maybe just further explanation would be helpful. Thanks.
I notice, there's a number of places in the city, such as in behind Jack's Store in Strathcona, and a number of developments just on the edge of the city as well. And my concern is that if the city all of a sudden puts out some additional lots, it may be difficult for those initiatives to work their way through. And I don't think this is the wrong thing to do. I just think this is not the right time to do it. Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick, if you can refresh my memory, roughly how many new lots will be coming online in that Bird Street development? That's fairly quickly too, I think.
In the second phase of the Upland subdivision, it's about 65 lots in and around that range. They're doing a bit of a layout change, so won't know what a final lot count is until they formally apply for subdivision. But in the mid-60s is what was proposed.
Right, okay.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I know about the Bird Street and the 60-odd lots, but I thought that what we wanted here was to get an indication, is there any interest at all in these lots at this time? I don't mind waiting a couple of months to put it back up again, but it doesn't hurt if people are moving into town at the rate that I'm hearing to have the lots ready if they're coming, because I know a developer will not be putting them on the market if the market isn't there.
Councillor Sobey?
I'm just prepared to make a motion, Mr. Mayor. If there's any other questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Sobey, what's your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that the city planner takes no further action into development of the portion city-owned property adjacent to the Westport neighborhood.
At this time?
At this time. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Then I'll second the motion. Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fine with not doing it right now. I'm still a little confused by the timing, but I think if anything right now, properties are selling all of a sudden. So that's why I'm thrown off by us changing our mind on it right now. So I'm fine with holding off on it. I guess we have it here and we could put the call out at a later date if we wanted to. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Councillor Alberni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To be completely honest, I'm completely on the fence. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. So, whether there's, I know there's a lot of opposition already in the community, in that specific community, to any development in that area, just on the basis of it being a natural space, even though it is set for future development. On the question of whether there's interest in a residential community or in the community for development of it as a residential space, I think Councillor McClellan is right. If the interest is there, then a developer is going to come forward, and at that point we'll see what happens. So I'm firmly on the fence. Convince me.
You're doing a great job of sitting on the fence, Councillor Alberni. My suggestion, as I said, isn't that we not do it, but that we just hold off and instead of heading into the winter when we put it out there, we do it in the early part of 2017, heading into the spring and summer. Councillor Sobey.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I just don't want to take any action right now because I'd rather see some movement going within the inner city and the Bird Street. I'm talking about affordable housing that could be, because this is what we're much more in need of, is affordable housing for tax-strapped residents. So it's just, I don't feel it's the right time. We need to concentrate on affordable housing within our inner hub of the city and with the vacant lots we have here. Thank you.
City Clerk, could you just read the motion, please?
The motion, Mr. Mayor, is that the city planner be directed to take no further action at this time with regards to release of the request for proposals for the sale and development of the property adjacent to the Westport neighbourhood.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson.
I'm not going to support the motion, and I would support the motion if there was a springtime date attached to the motion.
You wanting to make a friendly amendment?
Pardon me? Yes, I'd like to make a friendly amendment if I could, if we could look at bringing the RFP back to council at the first meeting in March. Did I do that right?
I'll second your amendment for discussion.
All right, go ahead.
And first meeting in March, in my mind, is a bit late. I was thinking in January, because then by the time we get the thing together, get it out on in the books and on advertising, we're into March. And that's when you start your construction times, if there's a good time. I mean, I don't see this as a bad time. I don't think anything would happen till then anyway, no matter what we did, but it doesn't hurt to hold back, and maybe we can get a better price then, and maybe get some better ideas by then. So I would prefer to see it January, but I will not, I'm not gonna amend the amendment to the amendment if people are happy with that one.
Any other comment, Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent report, Mr. Smith. I think what us or the people would really like to know is what is out there already. Like you mentioned, the Upper Bird. Is there other subdivisions that you know of that can say we've got 347 lots available in Port Alberni or something before we go ahead with this? I just I know I don't want to ask you off the top of your head, but if you could figure or find out exactly how many developments we have on the books right now, it would be helpful.
Well, certainly the second phase of the Upland subdivision is the largest. We have a number of small infill subdivisions that council has seen, 1 and 2 lot ones. There isn't any other large one that's on the books per se. That being said, the Upland subdivision at the mid-60s is the largest subdivision proposed in the 16 years that I've been here. So for our community, that's a very large subdivision. It's a large number of lots.
Okay, Councillor Sobey.
Yeah, I would just like to remind council that, you know, the Westport residents already spoke, and they spoke loudly about this. There was several environmental issues, there was concerns, and that they wanted to keep there. And again, I just want to repeat that we have, you know, putting a date till January is ridiculous. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. So I was hoping that we revisit this option within a year or something and see what the market brings up and comes up. So I'd leave it to that, but I would not support the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment that we're looking at is changing this to bringing it forward again in March. Okay, on the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? And it's defeated. Okay, so then on the original motion, which was once again, sorry?
To take no further action at this time.
Okay. So on that motion to take no further action at this time, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, City Planner, thank you very much. Council, this is a really good time to, it's 8:30, just to take a recess. So we'll come back in 10 minutes at 8:40. Thank you. we have La Bruschetta Bistro.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, La Bruschetta Bistro on 6th Avenue has applied to the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch for a change to their food primary license for a patron participation entertainment endorsement. So this would not change the hours that they are operating, but it would allow them to include either recorded or live music and to have a small space for dancing. It would also allow them to be able to host small events and functions. Council, as they have in the past, is required to consider the application and provide any comment and a recommendation with respect to the application. We did provide a notice for inviting some public feedback and did not receive any response from the public. The RCMP and the fire department have both indicated that they have no issues with this location. So the report does include some criteria that council might want to consider as part of their resolution. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
This is a use that actually occurs upstairs in the convention hall at any rate, is it not?
That's correct. It's part of the Italian hall, and the bistro is in the lower floor. So the main level is commonly accepted by the community for large-scale events.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for doing their due diligence by making this access to the public and waiting for public input, and obvious there's none, so I'm really looking forward for them to expand their business. I'm ready to read the motion if there's no other questions.
Okay, Councillor Sauvé, proceed, please.
That the Council for the City of Port Alberni support the amendment to the food primary liquor license for La Bruschetta Bistro for patron participation entertainment, and endorse the comments as provided in the report from the City Clerk dated September the 8th, 2016.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions, Council? All those in favor of the motion? Carried. And from the Director of Finance, RCMP contract operating surplus for the fiscal year ending March 31st. Whoops, thank you. The RCMP contract operating surplus for their fiscal year ending March 31st, 2016. We have a report dated August 31st advising that the RCMP contract surplus reserve balance is standing at a surplus of $439,862.88, and a recommendation that the excess balance be transferred to the land sale reserve fund. City Clerk, just help me clarify this. Did we make a decision at a previous meeting that this money would be divided between the land sale reserve whenever we received it and the aquatic center fund?
I don't recall, Mr. Mayor. I would have to check, unless the Director of Finance is currently aware of that.
Okay, it
Sorry.
could just be my failing memory, but I thought we had discussed it. Councillor Sauvé?
I'm the one that put the motion forward. That's to invest in our aging infrastructure, including the pool. Now, my question to the finance officer, was that last year's surplus, or are we talking about the same surplus here? And I have an additional question after that one is answered.
Mr. Mayor, the 2015 surplus we split between land sale reserve and I think is a pool. I don't remember for sure. I'd have to look that up. That was March of 2015. We have a surplus from the RCMP's fiscal year ending March 31st, 2016, and we have another surplus.
Okay. My question to you is, last year we split it. One went to the land reserve sale, and the other one to further investment, invest into the aquatic center, right?
I think so. I'm not positive.
Yeah, well, that's what we asked for, so.
If that's what you asked for, then that's what I did.
Yeah, so I would like to make I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you want to talk an amendment, but I would like to have the same surplus from the RCMP, half of it being sent to the land sales, and the other half, again, going towards our aging infrastructure in the pool to be added towards the pool.
Okay, so if we don't have a motion, so if that's the motion that you wish to make?
That's the motion I wish to make, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I guess the only question I have, and I know you can't answer it, is unless you're smarter, no more than I know, is the RCM, when we first started putting the money aside a couple of councils ago with the surplus reserve, we made a fund up for emergencies when the police bill got big if there's a major crime, and I think we got that to $1 million.
Yes.
So my question is that still enough? Because I can remember some crimes and some big times, and they weren't in the city of Port Alberni, they were in the regional district, but the bill was well over $1 million, and it was quite a while ago. So I'm just curious if that's still enough, and if not, should we be boosting that up as well for a bit so we don't get stung with a big bill sometime?
Well, we have a new OIC, and if I worked with the CAO and the OIC, we could probably put some research together and have a report back to council.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, maybe not even for this year, if we make a motion now to send this somewhere, but next time.
Okay, Councillor Alemany?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification on the motion, I guess. So we're still putting $150,000 back to the RCMP to do that portion for the RCMP member, yes? And then
What's
the
that? Sorry, the 150,000 for?
So in the original discussion, it says that $150,000 of the $439,000 has been committed to filling an RCMP member vacancy. So that's still happening, I assume, and then we're splitting the rest of that from the land into the land sale and into Echo Pool. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councillor Sobe?
Just to help the councillor asking a question about budgeting and regional district and so forth, just keep in mind that when a crime occurs in a regional district is not within a municipality, is actually taken care from a provincial budget, and I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Minions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to comment on the status report, but since we're on the discussion of pool, I know we have a report coming at the end of the year, or by the end of the year, to look at plans for a pool, but I just wanted to highlight that as really a priority. I think that we've been saving some money for the pool, and I know that some money was saved prior to us. But I think we need to really have that discussion and decide if we are moving forward with a pool, what's the plan and time frame going to be to get there. I think the longer that gets put off, and we've been talking about it since the beginning of our term, whether or not we were going to do it, the more projects come up that really make the feasibility of us ever building a new pool more and more unrealistic. So I think the sooner we can have that conversation and look at a long-term plan, the better. Otherwise, boardwalks and things like that are going to make it unaffordable for us. Thank you.
I think you're right. We need to make sure we've made that decision before we head into next budget year, and it involves discussions with the regional district and other neighboring governments. But on the motion, city clerk, could you please just read back our motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the motion will be that council direct the transfer of the surplus, which is $265,362.88 from the RCMP operating surplus reserve, half to the land sale reserve and half to the pool.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Director Rothwell. And
Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask a ancillary question. On Thursday, we're doing our strategic plan. Maybe it'd be a good time to talk about what we want to do with the pool.
Exactly. Thank you. Current status report. Council, are there any questions? Councillor McClellan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, number 21, from January 11th, this year, there's been put on there to implement a pilot kitchen yard waste pickup compost project, and I just wondered if that's getting anywhere or whatever. I noticed the climate, whatever committee, change disaster committee has had that on something that they wanted to do, and it's there, and just wondering how we're doing.
CAO, are you able to respond to that?
Mr. Mayor, I can tell you that was under the engineer's responsibility, so I don't anticipate movement on that in the short term. We did have a recent discussion with the regional district on that topic with no updates for you on that. In terms of living within our means, I would suggest that that's likely something we do in partnership with the ACRD or ask the ACRD to lead on. So it might be that it's a longer term project for us.
Okay, Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On number 25, Rainbow Crosswalk, I know it says not a strategic priority, which personally I don't agree with because we have create a welcoming and inviting community as a strategic priority. But it says report in progress, and I'm just curious if that is actually happening or if it's just said that for a while.
CAO.
Mr. Mayor, I'm aware that the city engineer had a draft report on the topic, and I am also aware that the council discussed this prior to me being in this chair, so I don't have all the history on it. And I believe there's at least one community group discussing decorative crosswalks. I'm also mindful that we are about to miss our weather window if we're going to do anything in 2016 for painting crosswalks. So would council like to see something brought forward?
Councillor Minions?
Thank you. I would definitely like to see even just a rough report. I think it's not necessarily a project that the city has to take on, but there is definitely interest from community groups. I know of one as well. So it might be something, if we put the information out there, we can get some movement on making it happen. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the city clerk informs me that there's a delegation at our next meeting in October on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alberni.
Just on number 12, in the Community Service Department, the revisit options to ban smoking in city facilities and parks. I'm wondering whether, and this may be a question for the CAO or for the Community Services Director, with the new regulations around vaping and smoking, this may be irrelevant because there's new regulations around banning all smoking in public places and public facilities. So it might be worth looking into that, and if so, we might just have to cross that off the list.
Mr. Mayor, that might be the case. We'll investigate and come back to council. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sobe.
For myself, number 17 for the prepare contract re-implementation of the Sprout program. You know, with her uptown and downtown and all that, it states just in progress. Is there any consulting being done or being spoken of, or is this project dead? I haven't heard this for a long time. Honestly, I would like for this to actually be working, especially in the uptown, and getting some small businesses in and so forth. So my question to you, in progress, is it a dead issue, or are we going to be looking into this?
I need to talk to Kevin about it, ask him if he thinks that he might want to do it at any point. His last communication with me around it was that he didn't have the time for it, and now that was early summer, so.
But is this something that your department could even look into? You know, I know we use Mr. Wright's consultation on other matters and so forth, but we've been educated on his project and what it's all about and so forth. With your professional knowledge of his program that he brought up, do you see anything worth implementing or revisiting? Or
Well, I think it would be a good pilot if we applied effort to it. But I had really looked to Kevin to do it. I mean, the council approved a contract with him to implement the program, and then there was some back and forth with him about the amount of money that was available and the scope of the project. And I thought we had reached an agreement, and then Kevin indicated that he didn't have the time to attend to it. And I don't have the time to attend to it either. I was really looking for him to take that on.
Okay, it's unfortunate to hear that, because I know it was Mr. Wright, a big leader and wanting to get something done on this, and I think we still do need it, but you know, we have it as a high priority, and I would hate to drop it from a high priority. So if able to, can you make some contacts and recall, and maybe at the next council meeting, let us know if we got something working here or not. I sure do hope that we do, but like I said, he spoke a lot of it, and for him to just say I don't have time is, you know, but I'll leave it to that. Thank you.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, on that subject, I think that the program sounded good. I'm not sure, you know, as you were one involved, and you know how good or bad or whatever the proposals were. But I'm wondering, is it possible to approach the Chamber of Commerce and if they could, on a commission basis even, if, you know, for every Sprout one they set up or can help someone set up, we can maybe, you know, if instead of paying a contract to somebody to draw up a program, which may or may not get somewhere, but if we, I don't mind giving an incentive. If someone brings in a business, it'll bring in taxes and would definitely cover any incentive that we did give to someone for bringing it to the town.
It's a great suggestion. I will start with a conversation with Kevin, but it's a great suggestion.
But if he's too busy, and I know you're busy, I mean, every time I turn around, you got another job dumped on you, so I think you're doing fine.
And he's still smiling. Okay. Councillor Minions, do you want to move receipt of this report?
Move receipt of the current status report.
Your seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And welcome back, Mr. Deacon. Economic Development Report.
So, first off, I'm delighted to report that we have this afternoon, late this afternoon, we received the report from Y-Factor with respect to Port Alberni's Google Rank initiative. And so we're, I met a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a few weeks ago now, with our manager of information systems, Jeff Pellick, and Jake Martins, our communications guy and also website guru. And we had a preliminary look at the recommendations that were there, but we're awaiting the final report. We are going to be discussing them with Jack Sy, who manages the city website, to see how much of it he can take on. There's definitely some work that I need to take on. There's a lot of blogging that's being recommended as a way of, you know, climbing the rankings. But there are also a lot of technical fixes to our website that would help us advance and climb above that worst place to live mention, which is now 2.5 years old. So that's that.
The second thing I'd like to draw attention to is tomorrow, CTV will air for the first time the beginnings of our 30-second commercial and two 15-second testimonials. And we looked long and hard for a theme on those. We were going to poke some fun at ourselves, show that we have a sense of humor. Everything that came up didn't quite resonate. So in this approach, we start by owning that some people don't get Port Alberni yet, but that's changing, and there is a reason why it's changing. You will see in the commercials that there are some different visuals for Port Alberni and activities that one is able to do in the community. And as much as I love hearing the steam train and seeing sport fishing boats in the water, they are absent from the video and the testimonials. This focuses a bit on new residents and their lifestyle passions. We focus more on women, young women, to dispel the notion that we're a man's town or a man's town only. There are only 2 testimonials that have been done at this point in time. More will be done as we move through the process. Those that have had a quick look at the testimonials have said that they're authentic and that they're really true to the 2 individuals. So the commercials will start airing on CTV. We're going to do a 26-week intensive through CTV News at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. The CTV Sunday Movie, Shark Tank, The Tonight Show, and we'll gauge the hits. We are going to create a landing. We will have by tomorrow landing place on the city's website for people that decide they want to look into this notion of those that are getting Port Alberni. There's a huge number of thank yous that I would need to give for the effort that's gone into that, and I'm not going to do it because it's getting late, but I'm going to ask Davina to play for the first time the 30-second commercial followed by each of the 2 15-second testimonials. So Davina, when you click on start, if you would go immediately, okay, you got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I trust we have sound. Is Jake still in the building? Okay.
Is it possible to
Some people don't get this place yet. But that's all changing because
I get it.
to experience it for yourself, visit us in Port Alberni and at portalberni.ca.
30 seconds goes really fast, and it's but as you will have seen. So if we could go to the...
Some people don't get why I live in Port Alberni. I live for time spent outdoors, for really fast internet, for a dream home I can afford, and for more time with my family.
I get it!
Some people don't get why I moved to Port Alberni. I moved for endless hiking, for a job I love, for hot days and cool lakes, and for new friends. I get it.
So it's a start at changing our image and creating a different impression about the community and who's here and why they're here. So we will add on to the testimonials as we go. We will also shift into a fall or winter activity or set of activities.
It's going to be 27 degrees tomorrow, so we might still be able to do some summer activities.
That's fall activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, fall activity, mid-winter activity here.
Yeah.
Councillor Alemany.
Thank you. It looks fantastic. It's long overdue. I think that there's a real campaign out there on TV and whatever other platform it may be on. I think that's great. The one thing in it, and just want to put it out there, if they're coming to our website, make sure it looks fantastic on their phone.
Mm-hmm. We have been working on that. We really have been. And there's also some recommendations here in this that pertain to mobile. Yeah.
So when you gave the newscasts that those times, that's CTV Vancouver Island, is that what it is?
Yeah, although the movie and Shark Tank are national, and the newscasts themselves are Vancouver Island and the Lower Mainland.
Okay, thank you. Council, you'll note that there's October 22nd and October 23rd Johnson Road charrette in progress. It's one of the bullets. So will there be more information coming out about that for council?
There will be. We will be providing council with a schedule for the 2 days. There are 2 full days of work ahead of us as we consider signage, locations of signage, streetscape, form and character, approaches to parking, all of that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the videos look fantastic, so well done. I know a lot of planning and back and forth went into those and over quite a period of time, but I think you got the concept really well and it looks fantastic. And just wanted to say it's really nice to see a lot of the facade improvement programs projects coming together. I don't know for sure that they're facade improvements through our program, but I'm assuming that they are as I see more buildings being painted and improved at the front. So thank you. It looks great.
Thank you. We have a number of facades that have been done under the program, and we've an article I wrote for the Business Examiner, and some additional publicity that we've been getting for that has generated a huge amount of interest, not only on the island, but also around the province. How did you guys do this? Community Futures itself is being besieged with requests from their offices around the province too, like why, that's amazing, and why'd you do it? What was really behind it? So 26 buildings, they won't all get done this year. They're Some of the building owners have said that there's a shortage of contractors to actually do the work, but I'm thrilled with what we're seeing take place, and I have put Lori and her board on notice that we may be coming back with a request for a second year of the program. And I'm very, very grateful to you and council for the very proactive response. One of the questions that I got from another community was, what report did you put forward that made your council feel compelled to support the program? And really it arose out of a verbal discussion about the business retention survey and the commercial revitalization tax exemption bylaw, saying, you know, the majority of business owners want to spend some money, but it's going to be less than $25,000, and that's when your motion came forward and the support for it. And some of my colleagues, quite frankly, find it hard to believe that council was so fast off the mark with that, and that this program is having such an impact on the community. So, thank you.
Councillor Paulson?
Once again, thanks for the videos. Those are looking great, Pat. That's a great start. Just referring to your bullet points in your report, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit. There's 3 that I have a question about. One's pretty cool, and 2 I'm a little concerned about. Touring for the feature film location.
Yep.
Is there anything that's come of that?
So
what were they looking at, or?
There is a feature film that the Island North Film Commission is looking for some sites for. In particular, they want a high school. They want a diner, and they want a street that they can close off. The film is basically it's a moralistic film about good and evil and social media in high school. And I think we aced the diner, and I'm not going to say where it is at the moment, but I think we aced the diner, and we got back a good on a school site, but I want to transform the good to great because I believe that it was good is not good enough. So I want it's great, and we're going to bring the crew here for those portions of the film. Also, in the course of that day, Tim had a sidebar conversation with them about bridges and trestles. And so I hiked them up in the pouring rain, I must admit, and none of us were prepared for it, to the trestle that's over Kitsuxas Creek. And so we went up the dike trail and then up the dirt trail to that. They were blown away by what they saw. They said there is nothing in the inventory of film sites for that looks like that. So they're very impressed. And they also saw some neighborhoods that they hadn't seen before as we toured. So that's initiative. The second one is more of a freelance opportunity. An individual is making a name for himself as a film location scout. He has a connection to Port Alberni, and again, he came through Tim. But he believes that the database, the film location database that most film companies are working with isn't good enough, or I should say can be improved. And he's setting out to do that, and Port Alberni's his pilot project.
So those are the fun ones. The two that I'm concerned about is the tech company move to Victoria.
Yep.
And the second one is some buyers' concerns about our development issues.
Yep. So the tech company moving to Victoria is Agog Labs, Skookum Script. They have been getting a bit bigger and bigger in the film industry, or in the gaming industry. They've developed this approach to how you can make your, how you can improve a game faster with this gaming language that they've developed. And it's kind of a situation where local group makes big and then needs to leave. He says they haven't left permanently, but, and we, so I was aware that there were some concerns back in the spring, met with him and addressed the concern. Heard there was another concern in the early summer, met with him and put some funding in place. Thought it had been arranged, and then heard that they were leaving. There was a group in Victoria who approached them and said, we like what you're doing. We're here to offer you about $800,000 in financing, plus we can give you access to some of the gaming people that you wouldn't have access to otherwise given our contacts, but we want you in Victoria where we can keep an eye out for you, and bring their investors around to see what's going on. So I hope they'll come back, or I hope they'll bring a part of their business back to the community. We'll wait and see. Sorry, the other was
an expression from a potential buyer about concerns about development issues.
Yeah. So there was a potential buyer of real estate here in the community who felt that, or expressed a concern to his realtor that we hadn't responded enough to his interests and what he wanted to do with the property. So I was made aware of the situation, actually through Councillor Minions, and I phoned the realtor. Then I phoned the potential buyer. Then I met with our building inspector, and there were indeed two sides to the story. And by the time I phoned the potential buyer back again, he said that he felt that our officials, city officials, had gone above and beyond in responding to his concerns. And initially, some of what he was asking us to do was not only unrealistic, it was illegal. So, but I did, you know, that was the follow-up that I took with respect to the action. And so I met with Rob and Scott, and then reported back not only to the potential buyer, but the realtor as well. So.
Councillor Sylvie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The idea of the commercial, wonderful idea and all that, but who approves it? Like right now, I guess it's going on air and it's already been made and done and everything, am I right?
Yep.
So does it go through an approval process through a committee or something, or?
No,
And who did we seek advice to the idea and making the commercial?
so when it was first proposed, I met with the Mayor's Business Advisory Council with respect to some of the concepts that had been forwarded. I also met with the rebranding team and talked about the concepts that had been put forward, sought feedback from them. The CTV creative crew was also responding to everything that we were putting forward, giving us guidance, advice, feedback. And but at the end of the day, after I had put the theme together, the testimonials together with the individuals that you saw in the film there, I then showed the commercial and the testimonials to about half a dozen people, including the film location scout, and said, what did you think? I got feedback from that, made corrective decisions, actions, and then gave them the go-ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason I'm saying this might be exception to the rule, and you know, working with the seniors committee and they are visually impaired, I didn't hear enough of Port Alberni. You know, I mean, all I saw at the end was just Port Alberni, but nobody said it out loud.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. That's
so
good
it would have been
feedback.
nice. I get it, Port Alberni, but the idea is a wonderful idea. Love the concept.
So the reason why we didn't say anything in the beginning is we wanted people guessing where these shots were from. So that's why it opens with, some people don't get this place yet, rather than Port Alberni. And then, however, that's all changing because, and then there's a whole group of, some individuals in a group saying, I get it. And so at the end, we reveal that it's Port Alberni. The 15-second commercials, because they're so much shorter, we start with the city's logo down in the bottom right-hand side, and I get it is down there through the duration of the 15-second commercials. But the feedback on visually impaired is good.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Minions, you want to move acceptance of that, or receipt of that report?
Move receipt of the Economic Development Monthly Report.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Deacon. Council, that brings us to Part G, or bylaws. First item, Council Remuneration and Expense Bylaw 2014, Amendment number 2, bylaw number 4919. City Clerk, do you have further explanation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an amendment to Council's Remuneration and Expense Bylaw to reflect a decision that Council made earlier this year following the Rogers report. With regards to Council's remuneration, that the CAO bring back a recommendation at the end of each year. So this amendment reflects that direction, and it also makes a change to the insurance coverage provision to reflect the names of our current committees, and also clarifies what actually happens around accident insurance.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClement?
Yeah, I really don't have any question, except is this a raise or a deduction, or is it the same? I have no idea.
Mr. Mayor, the remuneration that's reflected in the amendment bylaw is this year's current remuneration, and each year from now on, it will be per recommendation from the CAO. So that's the current remuneration at this time.
So it's the same,
It's what you're currently receiving. Yeah.
right? You were right, Ron.
No, you didn't get a raise, Jack.
I deserved one, though.
You might. Okay, so Councillor McClement, do you want to
Sure.
begin this process?
Okay, that right, we got a whole bunch of them here. That the council remuneration expense bylaw 2014, amendment number 2, bylaw number 4919 be now introduced and read a first time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
The council remuneration and expense bylaw 2014, amendment number 2, bylaw number 4919 be read a second time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
And the council remuneration, and expense bylaw 2014, amendment number 2, bylaw number 4919 be read a third time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And permissive tax exemption bylaw, 2017, for 2017 bylaw number 4920. City Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Applications were invited from eligible community groups for permissive tax exemptions for next year. 5 applications were received this year. 4 were from the Port Alberni Shelter Society for properties that they own on 12th Avenue, 6th Avenue, Maitland Street, and also for the main shelter facility on 8th Avenue. And the other application was from a society that's owned by the Hoopachasset First Nation for property they own at 4890 Beaver Creek Road. The Community Investment Program Committee met on August 29th to consider the applications. Representatives from both the Shelter Society and the Hoopachasset were in attendance to provide information on their applications and to answer questions from the committee. Councillor Paulson was there as a representative of council and can speak further to these applications. The committee did recommend that council endorse all the applications that were received. The relevant bylaws provided for council's consideration of 3 readings, following which it would then be provided notice to the public before council would adopt the bylaws at the next meeting in October. And I think unless council has any other questions, Councillor Paulson may comment as well.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I just, I agree with this motion and so on. I'm just curious, about a month or a bit more ago, we had a presentation from the Fur Park Echo Cabins. I'm not sure what they're called exactly, the Heritage Cabins or something. That George Rogers and Company Limited were here and explaining that they had some problems now because the provincial government stopped doing things and they suddenly couldn't, they gave us a check for a tax and said they needed a break in the future, and we suggested they, I thought, come to this, but did we give them direction to go elsewhere for help, or what, or did they not understand what we said?
City Clerk?
Council will recall that they had applied for, or they had received permissive or tax exemption in the past. Originally, they were statutorily exempt, and under the old provisions of the Act, and it came to light that they were actually not eligible for that tax exemption going forward. At this time, they would still remain ineligible for an exemption. They certainly are a nonprofit society, but at this time, they don't have specific criteria for the residents of the cottages. The only requirement that they have to fulfill is that their residents are 55 years of age and older. There's no income test, there's no other test that would qualify them for an exemption. So at this time, they're certainly not eligible for this.
Okay, thank you.
They're over 55.
Sounds old to me, that's real old.
It's been a few years since you've seen that number.
Yeah.
Councillor
Only a
Sobey?
little bit more than you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to let you know, I took the initiative to meet with the residents and the board and attended and pretty much stated what our city clerk just stated and explaining the reasoning why and all that. So everything was more clarified. That night, they were sent out with letters for voting which way they wanted to go for the future for the next tax year, and I believe there's the vote is already passed and everything is back to order. But I just want to let council know that I did explain everything and how the permissive tax works within the city, and they have a better understanding now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Minions?
Thank you. Just to clarify, are you saying that they voted to increase their rent so they can cover the taxes?
I don't know the final results, but what I've been hearing from the several residents that I spoke for is that they mostly voted yes into raising the rent. Some have chosen to move out, and some have chosen to stay.
Okay, because it had to be 100% unanimous.
That's right, but the final output, like I said, I was just there for educational purpose to explain to residents and the permissive tax, and the left was left to the board. So, but I don't want to speculate on rumors.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
Not on the current topic, but just on the two applications. Both applications are nonprofit societies that provide what the committee felt was a great service in areas that are of concern, both with homeless people and lady shelter, and also dealing with youth at risk. Both applications, there is a criteria you'll see at the start of the report,
Right.
and both applications actually had were able to tick off a number of the lines or whatever. But both presentations were great. They're both righteous causes, and I think they do great work for our city, and they fall well within the parameters of the plan. And as an aside from the Hoopachesit, I got a great lesson on maple syrup production in the meeting.
So Councillor Paulson, do you want to begin the process in that case?
Sure. That Council for the City of Port Alberni endorse the recommendations of the Community Investment Program Committee, that permissive tax exemption bylaw 2017, bylaw number 4920 be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
That permissive tax exemption bylaw 2017, bylaw number 4920 be read a second time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
That permissive tax exemption bylaw 2017, bylaw number 4920 be read a third time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Then that moves us to number 3, places of public worship exemption bylaw. City Clerk, any words that we need to be aware of?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an amendment to the bylaw that Council adopted last year for places of public worship, and it reflects the removal of the Salvation Army from the Redford Street property, as they will be vacating that by the end of this month. So that property will then become fully taxable.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Alberni, do you want to begin this process, please?
Actually, can I ask a question first?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering what, if at all you know, and if not, that's fine, what the assessment might be, what the tax revenue might be from that property.
I don't know that, I'm afraid,
That's
Mr. Mayor.
No worries. That places of public worship exemption bylaw, amendment number 1, bylaw number 4921, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
That places of public worship exception bylaw, amendment number 1, bylaw number 4921, be read a second time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, just a question, if I may.
Yes.
Just by reading the news and et cetera, I understand that they're moving across the road to the old post office, and I also understood from the news that they were having troubles getting that, some delays in getting that remodeled, and wondering if they're going to be able to make it in there by the end of the month.
Well, they will be in, but not fully in. So it's going to take a bit of time. But I think sort of to answer a bit of a question that Councillor Alberni had, because they're no longer in the old Redford school site, that property will now be taxed. But they're moving into the old federal building, the old post office site, that building will also be taxed because it's commercial purposes. So Salvation Army itself as an entity won't receive that permissive tax exemption. Sorry. We've read the second time. Has it been seconded? Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
That Places of Public Worship Exemption Bylaw Amendment Number 1 be read a third time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
And all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then, council, that brings us to the portion of lane closure adjacent to 3894 4th Avenue and removal of dedication bylaw number 4910. City planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the owners at 3894 4th Avenue had expressed an interest in purchasing a portion of unconstructed lane. City Council had requested some more detailed information before you proceeded with this. I can confirm that there are no city utilities or private utilities located under the portion of lane that is to be closed. There is a small accessory structure, and there's a survey attached to the report. This structure was constructed without a building permit on the city lane. It was constructed by a previous owner, not the current owners of the property. The lane closure would include this structure and then would result in it being legally consolidated with the parent parcel. The adjacent property owners at 3884 4th Avenue have submitted a letter that's also attached to Council's information package being opposed to this lane closure. Their main concern from their letter is access to their backyard. Certainly, the lane closure would appear to be the most direct access for them, although you can see this, their property is on the left-hand side of the picture there. There is a fence there with a gate. It's the most potentially convenient access. Their property is quite large, and they could have access from the backyard through another lane that's not being closed, although it's not fully opened, or potentially from the south side of their property off 4th Avenue. In both of these cases, it does appear that some fencing and maybe some trees might have to be, temporarily, at least in the fencing part, moved. But there is potential access to that. So that's the additional information that Council had requested, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What kind of money would we gain from selling that little strip of property? Has it been assessed? I'm sorry?
Yes, Council and the Kents have agreed to a purchase price of it. So I'm trying to remember how much that is.
I don't
I think
recall.
it was in the range of $5,000 or $6,000.
I don't recall council having actually agreed to this.
Council had agreed to a price for the potential closure of the lane. This is the bylaw process. So council hasn't closed this lane yet. The bylaw process has to go through before it can be closed as a lane, then title raised and potentially sold. But an agreed upon price was, and the price, it was a bit of an odd number, was $4,708.21. That would be the money that would be transacted, and the Kents would be responsible for other costs as well.
And just another question. So at the end of the alley, they've, on their mostly on their property, there is a structure that is actually on city property.
So there's a small accessory structure that was built by a previous owner that is on the public lane. Was built without a permit. You can see it kind of in the direct back there, and if you can go one further down, Davina. So it's kind of the one directly behind that little utility trailer. The other building, so that is on the public lane. The survey did confirm that. It was built by a previous owner. If the road lane closure was to proceed, that structure would now be on private property, the Kent's property. But currently, it's built on city lane, unconstructed city lane, yes.
And my other question would be, sorry, has the Haynes, have they offered to buy the?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
They've submitted a letter in opposition to the lane closure.
Because they can't get into their backyard after this goes through, without.
Well, I think there are a few other potential alternatives. This seems to be the most convenient for them, but they own quite a large, their property's fairly big, and it's not like this would be the only potential access. This is probably the most convenient for us.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask as well if the neighbors were aware that they were able to make an offer on the property, but sure they are. So my question is, it looks like the neighbors have a shed or something pretty much right on the property lane, or possibly even on city land as well. Would that have been done with a building permit, or is that allowed to be that close? It seems like they may both have some.
It's also an accessory structure that, although not part of the survey was only asked to pick up that accessory structure. It is probably, based on the survey, which is quite tight, it shows that. I suspect that is completely on their property, but it's right on the property line, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Alberni?
Just to the best of my knowledge, that the complaints from the neighbor didn't come up until now, correct?
We received the letter in July. This was the first opportunity to come forward to council after we'd received the survey information of when the lane was in there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Alemany, I was made aware in June that there was an issue between the neighbors because of this request. And Councillor Washington asked about the amount of money. Seems to me if we were to approve this for a net $4,700, it hardly seems worth it to potentially create this problem between neighbors. And why would we go there for $4,700? Seems to kind of be working the way it is. And there is an illegal structure built, albeit by a previous owner, an illegal structure built on city property. Which is maybe not surprising, but it's still not what we want to have happen in our city, so it's a problem for me. Councillor Paulson?
Just want to reiterate in the letter, they don't have any problem with the present neighbors. They don't have a problem with a working agreement with this. They're actually stretching it out to a potential other owner in that house, but it doesn't apply to the present neighbors. We realize with the present owners, there would be no problem for us to use the alley, but we know they are trying to sell, and new owners might not comply.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think our neighbor, he's got a benefit because he's got some building structure on our land right now. So I think we should just leave it the way it is, so that the other neighbor has access, and the other neighbor's got building on our property. So I think it's sort of a win-win situation for them both. We just leave it be.
Just one clarification. The actual closure of the lane would get rid of the trespass of this building, right? That would then, this building that currently trespasses on city land would now be on their property. Just to be clear.
Councillor Minions?
Thank you. I was just going to say it might not be a win-win situation because someone trying to sell could have a hard time selling with a piece of their property on city property. So, they would have known that, or should have known that at least when they purchased the property, but it's not really a great situation for anyone.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion related to this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, we'll move the bylaw here. First of all, the report from the city planner dated September 7, 2016 be received.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor of the receipt of the report? Carried.
That the portion of lane closure adjacent to 4394 Fourth Avenue and removal of dedication bylaw 4910 now be introduced and read a first time.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That the portion of lane closure adjacent to 4394 Fourth Avenue and removal of dedication bylaw number 4910 be read a second time.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That portion of lane closure adjacent to 4394 Fourth Avenue and removal of dedication bylaw number 4910 be read a third time.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
Just my question would be, before I vote on the last one, does this affect anything about the fire lane or any aspect? Because I know a lot of neighborhoods have their designated fire lanes and.
Either of these lanes are physically opened as through lanes, so they wouldn't have an impact from the fighting point of view.
And is there going to be any cost to the taxpayers into closing these lanes?
If it proceeds, the council will be responsible for the costs, including the survey costs and legal costs to proceed.
Thank you.
Council, I think we're making a mistake if we pass this, but anyway, on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay, so it didn't get the third reading. And council, we're on to part H, correspondence for action. We have an email from Penny Parcher requesting council consider allocating funds to the Greenwood Cemetery for irrigation and groundskeeping. Councillor Sobe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I read the motion, I'm in full support of this, considering to our next, because I know we put it aside in our last budgetary from last year, but I did had a few times, and then speaking with the city manager, we had issue about weeding, and we worked with some people, and I don't know what happened with the volunteer base issue as into helping with the weeding. But myself being a vet, and I often go to the cemetery, it's, I'll be honest with you, it's almost a disgrace. So with that said and done, I do support this, and we'll be discussing more about it under our next budget meeting. I'll read the motion that the email dated August 17, 2016, requesting council consider allocating funds to the Greenwood Cemetery for irrigation and groundskeeping be received and referred for consideration during the upcoming 5-year financial plan.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McClellan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is, I guess, something that's gone back quite a while. When I do recall it, and I can't remember which council or how long ago, where Mr. Kenny, who was the Director of Parks and Rec and looking after the property there, did come to us and say, this is something that would, if you do it, you're going to be putting taxes up more than what you want to put them up. And it was one of the things that that particular council, like I said, I don't remember which one, said, okay, then we'll let it ride and not do as much to it. Probably I can understand the feelings of people who have loved ones there. They'd rather have it in a nice place. So talking about it the next budget would be a good time, but we have to understand it's not going to be a little bit of money, I don't think, to put in the system.
It's not going to be a little bit of money, and legislatively, we can only use the interest on the money that we have in that fund for maintenance on the property, so anything extra comes from city funds. And so the city does pay the upkeep directly out of operating expenses year after year after year. I also point out that that's for everybody who is in the cemetery, and it isn't just restricted to one small group of people. It's everybody, whether they lived in the city or not. Councillor Sobey?
Yeah, it's up for discussion next budget, but I just want to elaborate that what kind of image are we portraying by neglecting it? So anyways, it'll be up for discussion.
The motion is clear. So,
Yeah.
Sir, you've got it seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Carried.
Mr. Mayor, that's where we have the two late items also on the same subject. Emails from Christine Jarvis and Janet Little, both expressing concern about Greenwood Cemetery maintenance. So just suggest a motion that they be received.
Move we receive the two late letters.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Council, from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, we have a letter dated August 19th requesting permission to install coin-operated binoculars at Victoria Quay. Someone wish to make this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the letter dated August 19, 2016, requesting permission to install coin-operated binoculars at the Victoria Quay be received. Council of the City of Port Alberni support the request and direct staff to work with the Chamber regarding locations.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if they're intending for us to do the installation and hookup and stuff. The letter just is pretty sketchy, but I just I'd hate to see them assume that we were gonna dig up concrete and pavement and pour pads and hook up whatever you need to be hooked up to these devices. I'm assuming there's some kind of electronics, so I don't see nothing in the letter there, and I just want to make sure that the city isn't going to be on the hook for that.
CAO, do you know an answer to that?
Mr. Mayor, my discussions with Mr. Collette from the Chamber, there was no indication that there'd be any city cost at all. In fact, when the suggestion was made that the city install them, I said, why doesn't the Chamber? And he said, sure, we will. So I think their intention, I'm confident the intention is that there'd be no cost to the city. But the motion directs staff to work with the Chamber, and that's one of the questions we'll ask.
Okay. Sorry, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And from the Canadian Cancer Society, we have a letter requesting endorsement of the Canadian Cancer Society's recommendation of smoke and vape-free outdoor public spaces in British Columbia. Councillor Alberni?
That the letter dated August 12, 2016, requesting endorsement of the Canadian Cancer Society's recommendation of smoke and vape-free outdoor public places in British Columbia be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And from the BC Government and Service Employees Union, we received some information providing a resolution requesting council's support at the UBCM regarding basically policies to retain skilled jobs and successor rights. This is a motion that is council coming from, originates from Fernie, and there is some concern about the number of Ministry of Highways offices or sites on Vancouver Island and what happens if they're sold. So I'm wondering, is there somebody wishes to make this motion that we would
I'll make that
support?
motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Oh, sorry, make the motion then.
Well, it's
Which
written
as-
here, but
as-
sure, I
as
don't
is
mind
there.
reading it. The information from the BCGEU be received, and council for the city of Port Alberni support the resolution of the UBCM urging the government of British Columbia to adopt policies to retain skilled jobs by awarding maintenance contracts for highways, roads, and bridges to companies that will maintain the employment and successorship rights which will benefit local economies.
And I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mayor, this is something that definitely can be affecting here if the local contractor gets gobbled up by a bigger one, then our local workers could face the same thing. Not saying they would, but it's possible.
And it certainly is, and there are examples elsewhere in the province where an area that currently has three sites, Parksville, Port Alberni, and Ucluelet, has been replaced with no resident employees, so that's a concern for us. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Brings us under proclamations. Councillor Washington, you want to make the proclamation about the toy run?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The letter dated August 25th, 2016 from the Port Alberni Toy Run requesting that the week September 12 to 18, 2016 be proclaimed as Toy Run Week in Port Alberni be received and the week proclaimed as requested.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. And Community Living Month. Councillor Sobey, you want to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that the letters received from Port Alberni Association for Community Living and Community Living British Columbia are requesting that the month of October be proclaimed as Community Living Month in Port Alberni and a photo op be arranged as requested.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And I'm always up for a photo op. Fire Prevention Office, Port Alberni Fire Department. Councillor Minions, how would you like to make that motion?
That the letter dated September 7th, 2016, from the Fire Prevention Office, Port Alberni Fire Department, requesting that October 9th to 15th, 2016 be proclaimed as Fire Prevention Week in Port Alberni be received and the week proclaimed as requested.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? All those in favor? Just kidding. Just, stutter. We have 4 minutes. Okay, then, City Clerk, we have a bunch of informational correspondence. Can
Few
you do it in
items.
4 minutes?
Give me some Red Bull. Yeah. Number of items, Mr. Mayor. A letter from the City of Abashiri expressing their appreciation for the city's support of the Twinning Society and hospitality they received during their recent visit. Email from Tim and Jane Stewart, who are from Duncan, thanking the city, local businesses, and the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association volunteers for putting together an amazing drag racing weekend. Carrie Chase, owner of Healthy Habits, thanks the city for their efforts to accommodate drag racing on Stamp Avenue, noting the economic benefits to businesses. Seniors Advisory Committee provide their minutes of the June 9th meeting. Port Alberni Better at Home program has sent an invitation to the 2016 Alberni Valley Volunteer Fair, which will be on Wednesday, September 21st from 3 to 7 p.m. at Echo Centre. RCMP Division provides a letter providing expenditures to July 31st, 2016. Production Care Association of Canada has submitted a letter advising of the Alarm Recycle program operated by Production Care Association of Canada, a program that recycles expired smoke, carbon monoxide, or combination carbon and smoke alarms at no cost. The Watershed Forest Alliance thanks Council for allowing them to present their recent report, Forest Harvesting and Water Quality, a case study of the China Creek Drinking Watershed, and further clarifying Watershed Committee's current role and future direction. Statistics Canada advises the response rate for the 2016 census was the best they've ever received, and that data will be released in February of 2017. And lastly, the Food Security and Climate Disruption Committee have submitted the minutes of their August 4th meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that all informational correspondence items through 1 to 10 be received and filed.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody wish to pull anything out from any of those? Councillor McLennan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the minutes from the Food Security and Climate Change Committee, I noticed an awful lot of action items asking Jake Martins to do an awful lot of things, and I'm just wondering if those are all actually necessary. It just seems like it's a catch-all for them for this particular meeting.
Councillor Alaman?
Just to clarify that, I guess what that stems from is just a concern at the committee that the recommendations from the report last year were sort of stuck in, we're not sure where, but subsequent to that and coincidental to that, we were informed that Jake and the city have been in the process of putting those things forward. So they're in the status report. There's things happening. So that's really a concern that is no longer a concern for the committee, and we'll just keep working on making sure that the report's recommendations are being followed up on.
Okay, thank you. Anything else council wish to pull up? All right, on the motion, all those in favor? Carried. I notice, council, that we're at 10 o'clock now, and we need a motion to carry on. If we're going to finish this meeting, probably take us another 15 minutes or so.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
It has to be unanimous, Mr. Mayor. Carry on.
Thank you. Abstaining doesn't make it.
That's right, it makes it a yes vote.
Sure. Nice try. Okay, report from in-camera. Council would like to report from our in-camera meeting that council has decided to take the Tidebrook motel property and put out an RFP to see what the commercial interest might be in its future use. And so the city planner will be adding that to the status report and would like from council an understanding of our level of importance that we wish to attach to that. So at this point, I open it up to council to give some indication of that. Councillor McClellan?
Hi.
Was that aye or hi? No, I'm just kidding.
High level of importance is
Say-
my vote.
I would agree with that, but is there anything else? Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be fine with it being high, but I'm wondering if we're going to run into the same issue that we just ran into with the residential properties, and our staff are going to go through the process, and then we're going to realize there's too much on the market already. Maybe before we add it to the status report, we should request a bit of an update from planning and economic development of their feels, whether or not there's a market for it right now.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment on that? In that case, Councillor Minions, do you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we get a brief report back from planning and economic development on whether or not there's a market for additional commercial property on the market at this time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. And then, once we get that report, then we'll have the opportunity to add it to the status report.
Just hope it don't take a long time.
Okay, on to council reports. First one is mayor's report. Just sort of three things for me. This could have been the rest of the night, but I was at the Salmon Festival for the opening ceremonies, and the rain held off. It was great. Great music beforehand and great music afterwards, and it was always wonderful to participate in the opening of that festival. And Councillor Washington, thank you for your leadership with the Salmon Festival after 45 years, but you haven't been there the whole 45, but met many of them, right?
Since 1983.
That's a long time, but thank you so much. Music was good, people were great, weather was fine, and I participated in measuring bullheads. That was Sunday morning. And there was one absolute whopper. Honest to God, it was as big as some of the salmon that were brought in. It was just, yeah, it was amazing. And on Monday, I was there for the weigh-in, and that was exciting, seeing just a whole series of people come in with their fish of various sizes. And then this past weekend, I was involved in the Fall Fair, Friday at the Emergency Services booth, and then on Saturday in the parade. Lots of pictures taken of me in the parade, so lots of proof that I was actually there, so it was good. And I also wanted to say to council that last Wednesday at the Mayor's Breakfast, we had a presentation from Joan Miller of the Vancouver North Island Film Commission, and it was amazing. Just the things that they are involved in, the projects that are ongoing, and the financial commitment of the various filmmakers that are involved, I realize that some of this is because of the change in the value of the Canadian dollar, but 18 months ago, there was about $1.4 million worth of economic activity in the film industry, and now we're $1 billion provincially, and we're now at about $2.5 billion provincially, and a lot of that money is being spent right on Vancouver Island. The thing that is holding it back is accommodation and trained staff. So the North Island College is working hard to address some of those issues, and other groups are working to address accommodation issues. So that's a good problem for us to have in some way, and it's a really exciting industry. So I move acceptance of my report. All those in favor? Carried. Then we're on to Regional District Report. Councillor McClellan.
And the last ACRD meeting at the end of August, the next one's in 2 days, but at the last one, we had Shelley Lyle and Brenda Sauvé receive their 5-year service award. The Sprout Lake Marine Patrol gave an end-of-the-year report. They seem to have a very successful year, and they do a good job out there for all of us. Had a report from Ice-T that there's still $2 million in the kitty, but it's a little harder to get at. And the ACRD board voted to sponsor the Tri-Iconic Challenge. I think it was a tune of about $1,000 or something. It wasn't a lot, but we're talking about how to handle that. They're also going to apply for funding for another wood stove energy grant. And the Alberni Valley group to end homelessness has hired a coordinator. I think it's to work 1 day a week, and that's Terry Deegan. And the other main issue that we did at the last meeting, which got a little bit of air, I understand, on social media, was the airport light contract. And it went the way that the consultant recommended, and I do have the papers with me if any of the other councillors are interested in knowing what happened. It's the way it went.
Move acceptance of your report.
And I move acceptance of that very long report.
All those in favor? Carried. And councillors' reports. We'll start with Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Completed our 31st annual Our-Town event this season. Everything went well. Thanks again to all our volunteers. 45th annual Salmon Festival, 43.2 pounder won the Derby.
How big?
53.2.
Thank you.
Just seeing if you were listening. Williamson Park. Were you there? Yes, I was. Yeah, Dan Weatherby from Chilliwack reeled that one in on Saturday, and it held for the whole Derby. Fourth largest one in Derby history. 91 we had a 54.4, 86 we had a 58.8, and of course 1982 the 60-pound 8-ounce Art Belinsky fish, which is on display up at the Chamber of Commerce. September 7th, Heritage Commission meeting. Exhibition schedule is the Vacation Land has been very popular, and they intend to hold it until the spring of 2017. We will be getting a World War I traveling exhibit in November, so we'll put it in another part of the museum. Then a World War II one will be coming in the summer of 2017. Film Fest is underway. We've got movies coming up on the 18th, 23, and November 13th. You can pick up your Film Fest brochure up at the museum, and we can take it from there. And that's it.
Thank you. And Councillor Alamani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a short one. I participated with the Alberni Valley Community Stakeholders Initiative to End Homelessness to hire their coordinator, and that was done successfully. Terry Deacon was the successful applicant, so that should be good. And I believe it was 2 days a week. It was funded for. Salmon Festival, it was a great time. Went down there. I haven't seen a 50-pound fish in a little while. I caught one on my dad's fish boat a million years ago, 20 years ago. They're big fish when they get that. You could barely fit it in that poor tiny little freezer. But it was great. It was nice to see a fish like that at the Salmon Festival. I got the chance to help Councillor Sauvé plant a tree down at the Alberni Elementary that was vandalized and needed to be replaced. So we helped fence off some trees down there on Alberni Elementary, which is great. Went to the Fall Fair last weekend. Seemed to be very well attended. Lots of great exhibitions, and spent most of Sunday at the Logger Sports just hanging out. And it was a great event as always. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Minions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much to report. Attended all the fun events. Our Town Salmon Festival. Fall Fair was very overwhelming, but it was good. Yeah, other than that, not a lot of council things. A lot of back to school and children activities. So nothing specific to report.
So I unfortunately didn't have the time in my schedule to go into the dunk tank, but you were offered the opportunity. So does this mean you didn't take it?
Certainly not.
All right.
You won't catch me in a dunk tank anytime soon. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson.
On August 10th, attended the opening of the Trulpish Games. One thing that struck me on that evening was the tremendous sense of family that was there. On August 17th, we had an organizational, informational Canada 150 celebration meeting. And if there's any groups out there that weren't in attendance, please feel free to contact myself or Teresa Kingston. We're trying to pull together the schedule. There will be openings and possibly some grant funding for people who want to form events for the Canada 150 celebration. So you can contact myself or Teresa Kingston. I attended the Our Town event, and I got to supervise, again, the Bulldogs and many, many young people in the community for the world's only floating ball hockey game. August 29th, we had the permissive tax exemption committee meeting, which we dealt with earlier. Attended the meeting with Michael Litchfield with discussion on the McLean Mill governance model, which was very informative. Attended the Fall Fair and took in 2 sessions or two shifts with the emergency response booth that's hosted by the regional district. And my wife and I took some time off through August, 3 weeks, and of course, of which time we had many, many relatives visiting from Alberta, so it was busy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Sobey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. August 11th, we had the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we're very happy that Mrs. Deacon had got employed, and we're looking forward to some research done, especially for our seniors with fixed income. On the 14th, the RCMP Community Policing Volunteer Appreciation Barbecue. I represented the city there and thanked all of our volunteers. 16th, Ford Park, I was the special chef guest for the barbecue there for the second time, so I guess they like my burgers better than yours, Mr. Mayor. So
They're calling you Smoky now.
Yes, they are. On the 18th, Alberni Valley Museum opening, I represented the city for the exhibit opening of Vacation Land. I must give kudos to the staff. I sure got a history lesson, and I invite everybody to go visit the exhibit. The Twinning Society on the 28th, we had a meeting. There was pretty much just a wrap-up of what visits we just had and appreciation of everything was done, and they're thanking the mayor and others who participated. September 1st, Cop for Cancer fundraiser at the RCMP Detachment Barbecue. I attended there, and I would like to tell the city manager that I was astonished on the city staff that attended. Not only the whole, pretty much the fire department, city staff from every department. I've never actually seen that before, so kudos to the staff, and please extend my thank you to them. Salmon Fest, excuse if I didn't pronounce this, but the KUAS Crisis Line fundraiser. I was in a dunk tank, made a lot of money, unfortunately, for me. And also, thank you for the city staff who pledged money for me for that charitable event. September 10th, I attended the booth at the Fall Fair for the emergency planning. The booth actually had a draw of 570 entries. It was very popular, and winner was Carrie Smith of Cherry Creek, who won the 72-hour emergency bag. There's one thing I wanted to mention that the 15th of September, the Twinning Society is having their annual meeting, board meeting, and the biggest thing is that we're having a adult and youth delegation arriving soon, and they're looking very much for volunteers, not only for the board, but also volunteers for lodging for these students, and it'll be approximately for a week. And also volunteer fair, September 25th, Better at Home. It's important. We have a community with so many volunteers, but we're looking for young people, anybody who's willing to volunteer a few hours of your time to please take the time and attend the fair. It's between 3 and 7 p.m. at the Echo Center, and there's something suited for you for volunteer and giving back to your community. So that's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You know you live longer when you volunteer. Extends your life.
I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, Councillor McClement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to try and follow that act. He promised me it'd only be 4 minutes that we voted to go on, and he took more than that for your report, Councillor Solvay. Anyway,
I was busy.
the only thing I'd just like to say, I appreciated the Fall Fair. I was there, and my wife got a whole lot of ribbons when she put in canning and so on in the horticultural show, and I'd like to see maybe some more people putting things in there. It's kind of handy to have. And been volunteering out once in a while at the McLean Mill, not as much as I used to, because with the broken green chain, there's not much lumber there. And I will now make a motion to receive all those wonderful reports. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All those in
Mr. Mayor.
favor? Carried. Thank you. And council, that brings us to new business. Thunder in the Valley, Councillor Alemany.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that following the recent Thunder in the Valley event, Council for the City of Port Alberni directs staff to provide a report copied to the Advisory Traffic Committee and Food Security and Climate Disruption Committee outlining the environmental impacts of the event, cost to the city, economic impact to the community, and any lessons learned.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion, and I also have a question for the city manager on that subject, if I may. It's a quick question. All the rubber that's on the road, is that going to be removed, or is it a safety issue? Because I remember at the airport, it used to be an issue.
Mr. Mayor, I know it's a concern that Manager of Operations Takama has been looking into. I can't answer with any accuracy on that, but I can bring back a response.
Thank you.
Isn't it an issue if you're a jet trying to land? I don't know, but it's an issue. Yeah. Councillor Alemany?
Thank you. Just to explain the motion a little bit, this was meant so that if there are future discussions with Thunder in the Valley and the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association about a long-term contract or further hosting of the event, which may or may not be a great thing, just to make sure that the city has lots of information at hand and any required information that it might need to make that decision in an informed and complete way. So no preconceived ideas on yes or no as far as hosting the event. Just a matter of trying to get as much information into our hands before we make that decision.
So out of curiosity, Councillor Alemany, would this be a greater or lesser environmental impact than, say, the regatta that occurred?
I would have no idea about that.
But, I mean, we do have these two events that happened this summer that are both major contributors to the economy and also major consumers of fossil fuels. So It's just interesting that your committee is looking at one thing but not the other, so interesting. Councillor Paulson?
I just want to say I won't be supporting the motion as presented until after such time as we have the final presentation from the Alberni Valley Drag Race Association with their wind-up report. I want to make sure that our staff isn't chasing ghosts here, and our staff time is very valuable, and I don't see the benefit here.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I can't support the motion at this time for the same reasons Councillor Polson. We're sending staff out to chase ghosts. I mean, the implication here is that there was something happened to our environment because we were burning gasoline or whatever type of fuel was in those vehicles. The trees nearby absorb an awful lot of that carbon, and anytime they build a racetrack anywhere, they have to have trees around it, and those trees grow very well because they are a carbon sink. So I'm not too concerned about that part. I appreciated the fact that we still had it. It was a reduced drag. I'd like to see it move to a place where they have the full quarter mile, which probably near a lot more trees and so on. But we did ask them when they were here and asked for permission if they were just going to come for 1 year and go away, and they said no, they would commit until they get something else up to 5 years. So, you know, I think to now start to say to them, oh, golly gee whiz, I think we should be cautious, that's all.
Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought the drags were a fantastic event. I was really happy to have them in town. I think there's no harm in researching whether it was positive or negative for not only the environment but the economy and the city as well. So I think this is just a responsible follow-up to the event.
Councillor Alberni?
Yeah, just wondering on the on the motion itself, what we're looking for really is information from the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association. I don't see a whole lot of staff time being taken up on this, aside from economic impact assessments that have already been done by the economic development officer. So I don't see a whole lot of issue there, and perhaps I'm not correct, but I don't believe any agreement has been reached already as far as hosting the event in the future. Maybe I'm not correct on that, but
you're right in that we haven't made a commitment beyond the 1 year, but there was some discussion about going further, but there is no commitment beyond the 1 year.
right. So again, this motion is simply to inform that decision. And that's all it is.
Okay, Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick comment. I'm just thinking a simple invitation for the Drag Racing Association to make a presentation.
Response, Councillor Allen?
No, I wouldn't really
Okay.
get sort of the information out of it.
Okay, so then on the motion, which I believe has been seconded, am I right? Okay. On the motion, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Defeated. And this is now moving on to question period. It's an opportunity for public and press to ask questions of mayor and council. And seeing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? You can store it, and
Put this in my drawer.